order.
I didn't pick up the latest one. Let's see, is it different?
That's the latest one.
Okay. Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7:30. And I guess the first order of business is, anybody got any omissions or corrections to the minutes?
I do. On that front page, there are just some wordsmithing, like Cooper misspelled, provide,
Sidewalk.
and, yeah. So I think my changes were only all on the first page. Anna, you wanna look at cross-reference mine?
Oh, you didn't get that one. There was the addition of, the change of the name, abutter Vera Ford to Vera Cohen,
Yeah.
is that right?
Yeah,
I didn't know
the
I
names.
couldn't read
Yeah.
Yeah,
what you signed in.
And asked how much water frontage there was.
Yeah.
That was the Newtown Road.
Yep.
I also had an addition to the 417 King Street one. You note that he had increased the new culvert size as requested, so I added to the 18-inch diameter to match the drain. That he increased it to
Mhm.
18 inches from 12, I think it
Yep.
was, something like that. And the off-site drain had been surveyed and plans revised to be sure that water could flow or would flow to the drain, instead of saying the same spot, say drain maybe,
Right.
because.
And then I wanted to clarify on Three Speck Pond. The June 19th meeting for the SWIP NOI should be a filed NOI. Like I wanted to actually, I think that's what we agreed on, that they're gonna have it filed so that they can show it to us, not just a
Right.
piece of paper.
Also, I was a little confused about one of the sentences in, also the 417 King Street on page 2, top of the page. It says there was discussion, that any pre-existing wetlands could have reduced flows, but that the doubling in length of the stream corridor would also reduce flows. I was a little confused about that, because I thought that it was the doubling in the length only that we thought would maybe reduce the flow.
Well,
So maybe,
under pre-existing conditions, Carl said that the wetlands out there could have reduced flows. They could have provided that function. And
the
that's
wetlands
basically
behind the property? you mean?
The
the
wetland,
ones that are being remediated.
the swale would
that were
have
filled,
broadened
that we never
out,
saw.
the swale would have broadened out, and maybe a lot of it would have sucked in, whereas with a more narrower swale, it's gonna direct it more around and down. It's gonna be more,
But it's twice the length, so it has
Yeah.
more time to.
So
But you-
maybe to resolve this, you could say that we resolve that the doubling in length of the stream corridor would even out, and so would not end up reducing the flow to the,
I don't think.
well, off-site? Is that what we were getting at?
Would also provide mitigation for reduction of flows.
I guess I'd have to refer a question to Amy that knows more about that stuff than I do, but Amy, what is your opinion on that?
Well, just the phrase, you say that the doubling length of the stream corridor would provide mitigation for reduction of flows.
But in actuality, do you think that's what would happen? Do you think it's gonna be more channeled, so it's gonna be a higher velocity coming around?
The slope isn't changing, it's just gonna be over a lot longer area, and there's bends in it, which will slow everything down too. And we don't know what was there initially.
Yeah.
So, wait, I'm sorry, I still, maybe I'm not. What do you mean by pre-existing wetlands? Because is that the
Before
wetlands
they
that
filled it.
sourced? Oh, okay, all
Yeah.
right. I was thinking you were saying the pre-existing wetlands that sourced the stream, that were off-site, that then flow over and then, but you're talking about the wetlands that were filled in on-site.
Right, so their function was lost, so it's being replaced
Okay.
by the extra.
I think you can also make a pretty good argument that it will in fact slow down flow because you've kept the grade the same, but you've added a lot of roughness to it, which will slow that water down.
Give it more chance to-
But the other issue is the whole field that's sloped towards it, and where the pipe is gonna be covered, there's gonna be on either side, there's gonna be water that could go, that is not gonna be going in.
Right, okay, we gotta just
Yeah.
wordsmith
Alright.
that to keep going.
Okay. And then add it was the Blandings Turtle on the 501 Great Road. That wasn't mentioned in this paragraph, but we should probably mention it because that's the whole reason why it's it's an NHESP area. But, and just some, and it says a permanent turtle barrier was also requested. I thought we talked about a fence,
That's,
not anything but a fence, right? A low fence, is that right? Something like that. Anyway, that's all.
Okay. If there's no more further omissions or corrections, can I have a motion to accept the minutes, please?
I move to accept the minutes as amended.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And due to the time factor, I think we're gonna put some of this administrative discussion off till later on in the evening. Continued public hearing, notice of intent, 204-850, 305 Foster Street, map R10, parcel 2-1, for septic system upgrade to replace existing failed system. Applicant requested a continuance.
They're redesigning, so
So,
they'll come back when they know what they're doing.
so are
Okay.
we putting them forward to May 8th, or are we gonna,
I'm gonna just keep bumping them forward.
okay,
He said he didn't think he'd be ready for tonight, so
okay.
Okay.
Is this existing failed system currently receiving flow?
I have no idea. It must, I assume. Well, maybe
They're
not.
probably
I don't know.
pumping it, that's
Yeah.
what they're doing.
But I guess that's what I was trying to understand.
Yeah.
Okay. Continued on 7:35, continued public hearing, notice of intent, 204-852, 227 Newtown Road, Acton, Littleton map, U27 parcel 12 and 13 for a new seasonal dock installation, and my understanding was it was just a matter of getting a number or
Just
something.
need the number, which we have, and DEP had no comments.
Okay.
So we just need to close that out and sign an order of conditions, such.
Okay, I'll motion to issue an order of conditions to 227 Newtown Road in Acton, Littleton map U27 parcels 12 and 13 for a new seasonal dock installation.
Do I hear a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There you go.
Didn't want to bring the girls for the exciting part, huh?
Couldn't get them here, they had belly. They had ballet. I got overruled.
So you can pick this up from Amy, or it'll come to you certified mail.
Great.
So do you want me to let you know when it's ready and you
Yeah,
can come
just-
pick it up, or do you want me to just
Yeah,
mail it?
just a question, so I'm not familiar with, from here on, what's the process? So does it, I mean, is it done tonight, or is it done 2 weeks
It's,
from now, or I?
it's effective the day that I get it in the mail, the day that it's stamped, or that you pick it up. And then there's a 10-day appeal period. And you will also, when I give you the order, you'll also need to get that recorded at the Registry of Deeds.
So,
You can go.
when you say go, what does go mean?
Then you can
Start work.
You can start, but just you need to know there's an appeal period, so that you do work it.
If I do it on my own, then it's at my own risk.
Correct.
So in the event that somebody appeals and there's a finding, then I would have to, I've got it. Okay.
But it does have to be registered on your deed,
It does have
Recorded.
to-
Yeah, recorded.
recorded.
So what is the earliest I could pick that up?
The earliest tomorrow, but I've got like 10 other ones to do, and they're gonna be going first, because they're already a little bit late. If I don't get it tomorrow, I'll get it Wednesday.
Okay, great.
And I can I'll let you know when it's ready, and then you can let me know if you wanna pick it up or have me drop it in the mail. It'll be
great.
certified, so someone's gonna have to sign for it and all that.
No, we'll come by and pick it up. That'll be the easiest thing.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
So
And-
thank
And
you.
if you're trying to expedite this, your options are either to go all the way down to the Registry of Deeds.
But some of the attorneys in town
They
can
can do it.
through in town here.
Oh, right. Would you mind, there are a couple of references that,
You mean,
I'm not allowed to do that.
oh, that's right.
Oh.
by question.
Bruce may be able to.
Yeah, thank you.
You two can
By
chat.
references, anybody who's evidence of actually having published it, okay, great.
Yes, he can help you. Cool, good luck.
Would
Thank
be
you very
her
much.
office.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Continued public hearing, notice of intent 204-853, 501 Great Road, map R18, parcel 8, for construction of Town Fair Tire for retail use, associated parking and drainage system.
And did I get the order conditions back?
Yeah. It's right.
Not in my hand.
You put it into one of those folders.
Thanks for revision.
Bruce distracted you.
I totally distracted her. I don't know how I'm gonna do this with the microphone.
Yeah, we're still trying to navigate these microphones a little bit.
Put the neck up high. I talk loud. So, these are the plans that we submitted in with the changes. The changes are very minimal to the plan. On C3.1, we show the turtle nesting area, and we show the turtle barrier. To install a turtle barrier as a 4-foot-high black vinyl coated chain link fence buried 6 inches below the surface. So it'll be 3.5 feet above the grade. To make it easy so that it doesn't have variable heights and stuff all around, we picked the 213 contour.
Oh, okay.
So we follow the 213 contour right across, and then at this point, we just run it straight over to the edge, which is generally right around 213 as well. The distance is about 10 to 12 feet, depending upon where you are, away from the edge, and then when you come over here, it's only about 6 or 8 feet away from the edge. It does come into the buffer, just this little tiny bit right here in this corner. But it's just a little tiny bit. We're just trying to give a little bit of windrow area to allow for some snow to come off to the end. And then on page 6, or C8 one, I think, C7 one. We added the turtle nesting area, and put a note down here for it as well. And this area will be predominantly sand. And then the turtle nesting area, we're planting little blue stem. Brian suggested 24 feet on center. I have them laid out, they vary. I think the outer ones are 24 feet, and these other ones are more in the 18.
You mean 24 inches?
No, 24 feet
Feet.
on center. This is that grass,
Right,
the
yeah.
blue stem grass.
Yes, so it doesn't
they-
have deep roots, so
Yeah,
that way
right.
they
Yeah,
can kind of.
And-
24 feet on center is pretty,
It's huge.
Pretty distant.
It's huge. And the idea behind it is that it gives them a little bit of shelter, they can hide behind it, but it just gives them the space, but it leaves the area open so that they can readily dig.
And the grass will seed itself probably and fill in some of that.
Yes, yeah, you'll get, I mean, I don't know if any of you have run across the turtle nesting areas, but they'll dig right through your sodded lawn, you know. They have no problem with that whatsoever. I have friends in Acton, and they dig in their lawn constantly. But,
Has Natural Heritage looked at that plan? That's,
no,
Brian Butler designed
Brian
it, though,
Butler
so
did.
I
Oh,
think it's-
okay.
yeah, so I think that's,
he's Mr. Turtle. To say
what we
it
call
nicely.
somebody who knows these things
Yeah.
has looked at it.
no, we appreciate you doing that.
So we added those couple items. I think, look at my list of what I gave, you know, and there was also an email that I sent in from Brian that said he'd been out to inspect this
Amy sent that to us.
Hemo barrier. When they installed the barrier, they started the fence just a little way from the edge of the building, I think, you know, because of the trenching machine getting up against the building, and it was up high, and they weren't worried about erosion going through. They weren't thinking from the barrier standpoint. So Brian suggested a piece of plywood be installed there, And I went out immediately and put a piece of plywood in. I took a picture, forgot to print it out, but I can run out to the car and grab my phone. I try not to bring my phone into the meetings. Again, I can show you the picture of it. But you can see it from the road when you drive by, because I was talking to Brian on another subject tonight, and he said, I saw that the plywood's been up. I said, yes, it has. I went right out when you said to. So, I mean, the idea was that if someone steps over the line, they step on the hay bale, they're gonna crush the hay bale down.
Yeah.
So, and the barrier is the fence and the board.
I mean, someone like Maren?
Yeah, so, yeah, we had a sidewalk with the planning board and Warren stepped on. I said, get off my hay bales.
And where do you stand with planning?
We are continued to May 4th
Okay.
because they were overloaded for town meeting stuff.
Yeah,
They want to
master
get their
plan,
master
so-
plan approved.
Do you anticipate any changes?
Any changes are gonna be labeling on the chart, the basins out here. It's outside your jurisdiction.
So is it your
so
wish to close tonight?
it's our wish to close this
Yeah,
evening.
that's what I thought.
Sign.
Excuse me?
Said that seem to have a great deal of interest in your sign.
Yeah, well, we're modified the sign, we've modified the building, and onward and forward we go.
So nothing in the backside that you're working with them on.
No.
They talk in terms of signs like hooded and illumination for like the wetlands or anything in the back.
Say that one more time?
Amy, you know, for wetlands corridors, how they want the light
Hooded.
posts hooded,
Shielded?
shielded? Is
Shielded.
that-
Yeah, these light posts that'll be
Those are
out,
all-
they'll all be shielded.
Yeah, okay.
And then we have some down lighting over, I think, 2 or 3 lights down lighting off the back of the building, you know, wall packs, and that'll be shielded down.
Down, okay.
It'll all be shielded.
I don't have any other questions.
Post for the fence, just driving them in.
Stockade fence, drive them in, I don't know.
Just want to make sure you're not, I don't know, getting real fancy with a 4-foot tall
The
fence.
dumpsters are in the back but
They're
covered.
right here, they're in this enclosure.
During construction, we're gonna ask, because of the wetlands, that if there are any construction dumpsters, that they be covered as well, so the debris doesn't go into the wetlands.
Okey-doke. I think
And-
that's a new Nippities requirement as well.
We're good? You guys wanna close it?
Somebody want to make a
Sure.
motion?
I'll make a motion to issue an order of conditions,
You need to close it first.
close the public hearing for 501 Great Road, map R-18, parcel 8, for construction of town fair tire for retail use with associated parking and drainage system.
We do it all as one thing. Close and issue the order of conditions.
Close and, sorry. You think I'd have this by now? Close and issue an order of conditions for 501 Great Road, map R8, parcel 8.
Do we hear a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Goodbye.
Okay, thank you.
I can
Hello.
sit right here.
Hello, goodbye.
He gets to run.
Okay, you going to, okay, sounds
And do you want
good.
me to mail this or someone pick it up, or probably
Well,
Wednesday?
I'll pick it up, and I'll
All
get
right,
it
I'll
to
let you know.
Sherry, and we'll get it recorded.
Yep. There you go.
Thanks.
Good night, John.
Continued public hearing notice of intent, 204-851 Smith Road, Stone Yard, map R22, parcel 9-1 for extended existing waste block wall and installing waste block erosion controls to existing and proposed waste block wall within the buffer zone. Somebody want to speak to that?
Good evening, Bruce Ringwald from GPR. Forgot to say that last time.
Got you
Thanks.
covered.
Well, that's why I looked at the microphone and it's, still. When we met last relative to this, I think the last thing that we had was throughout our long-term pollution and prevention plan, the O&M, we talked about, cleanings of fines out of the catch basins and from the swale out back and different places and what to do with it. And what we did was we added in an additional category at the end of the O&M. It says stone dust and sediment debris removal and mitigation. The owner shall dispose of all the product all the byproduct from the BMPs, street sweeping, sediment forebays, gravel access drive, etc., in the location shown on the plans labeled stone dust cake covered storage area, unquote. When stone dust cake covered storage area is empty, the owner must dispose, remove sediment and debris from the site. Collected sediment and debris will be properly disposed of per local, state, and federal requirements. And they've got a contract with a couple of different gravel yards that use it and mix it in and et cetera. I didn't do any changes to the plans because there weren't any changes to the plans asked for.
So we just have I have a couple of comments on the plan that's submitted here. There's a couple things that need to get marked on it that were not mentioned here, and I'll make them reference to you in the O&M. So if you,
On
if you go,
this plan
if
here?
you go to page 13. Oh,
Page 13. What are you in?
Long-term pollution prevention and
It's way in the back.
I don't have it.
Yes, I think it's your
you
next.
submitted it.
I submitted, what am I looking at? I'm looking in the
Your-
old
your
one. I'm looking at the old
revised-
one, I apologize.
April
Page
1st.
13, yes.
So, and then if you reference the plan that's submitted, a couple things just need to be added. So you talk about, area 2, and it says C plan. When we looked at the plan, we couldn't see something that was physically noted as area 2.
That was from your enforcement sketch, and I didn't label the
Okay,
area
so
1
that
and 2,
needs to-
didn't move forward.
So
Okay.
go forward, and then you reference, above that in the category, snow storage. BMPs included in this manual should not be, utilized as snow storage areas. Snow should be stored in material stockpile and dewatering area. That's not noted on the plan, so you need to just put wherever that is on the plan.
The material stockpile and dewatering area, yep.
Correct. And
Okay.
then something that's new, so when you modify that, if you can add on, go back to page 9. And it's the last paragraph, and this has to do with sweepings, and this is just more, looking at our different seasons that we've had. On the third line, it says generally from first spring thaw through winter snow storage. We would like for you to add the word continuous winter snow storage. So the thought of if we have a really mild winter and there's activity and there's no snow, it would have them and ask them to go ahead and start cleaning. So what we're asking is that it says generally from first spring thaw through, and then add the word continuous winter snow storage.
Oh, I got you.
Winter snow
Coverage. Yep, so we're just asking to put the word continuous in front of winter.
Got it.
Amy, I took your packet, so
Yep.
I'm gonna give that back to you if you had anything referenced. I went through that.
I didn't, I just marked changes you've made.
Can I add these in as a condition, or can I add these in and date it?
Well, it didn't reference on the
Tomorrow?
plan, so that's.
When you
the-
say plan, you want it
it
on
needs
this
to be-
plan?
Yeah, it needs to be on that, so
On
when
the
someone is
BMP plan.
handed that,
This.
they have their
They have
packet.
everything all together. Yeah.
If it weren't because of the plan, I would say yes, but because it is referenced to the plan, we need.
Well, that's-
I mean,
that's an
no,
O&M
that's
plan.
the-
It's
That's the
not-
O&M plan.
Yeah.
That's the plan in the O&M.
Can we just condition it?
And just make it as a condition. And I'll just fix it right away, get it right to her.
I don't think that's a problem.
Okay, that's fine. We'll hold the paperwork till it's done.
Yeah,
That's fine.
You guys got your filter press?
No, it's,
You gonna invite us out to come see it when you do?
sure.
I mean, you know.
Sure. It's, what happened is they got about, I told Amy this, they have a 2-week backlog, a 2-week further backs, because when they chose not to build the shed outside and to put it inside, they had to make a couple of the tanks bigger,
Okay.
for their operation inside. So it's gonna be 2 weeks more into May.
Okay.
So, but, you know, all that means is that as they're ramping up, Jim's doing more of the split buckets because we're not using that other area.
Okay.
You got it all cleaned up, so.
Sure.
Now, I'll let you guys go forward.
Okay.
Before you close, I guess my question is when we close and we issue an order of conditions on this, does that lift the enforcement order? Because now we have the order of conditions to do the fixes to the enforcement order?
You can vote to lift that tonight if you want. The one thing we do have to remember is that for your June 19th meeting, do you want to talk about that, SWIP?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the other thing. I just wanted to make sure we're clear on the June 19th.
Yep.
Want to see you at that meeting with.
I may have someone else here. I have a huge hearing in Westford that night, but we'll have it
You
in.
know, honestly, my interest is not necessarily in going through your SWIP line by line, but
I was just gonna
documenting
say,
it
as long as I have it
Submitted.
into you before then, do I even need to show up?
Yeah, that's been submitted already.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right, I want to see the documentation from the EPA that that the NOI has been filed, the SWIP is done. And otherwise, I'm not particularly interested in costing your client consulting money to send someone in.
So, do you think he needs to have someone here on the 19th?
No.
Not if
Not
it's,
if-
not if
not
it's.
if he
You're
can
not allowed to
provide
say no.
documentation.
So prior to
I mean, as much as I
issuing the
enjoy
order of
visiting.
conditions, someone should make a motion to lift the enforcement order.
You just made it. Do I get a second?
Does that have to be posted though? Do we do?
No.
No?
Mm-mm.
No.
No.
Something, okay.
It's
I
actually been on the agenda.
move
all
that
along.
we lift the enforcement order on 2 Spectacle Pond Road.
That'll hear a second.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now, do you want to go for issuing order of conditions, close the hearing and issue an order of conditions?
Anna's on a roll, go ahead.
All right. I motion to close the hearing and issue an order of conditions for 2 Spectacle Pond Road, Stone Yard, map R-22, parcel 9-1.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Done.
Guys, it's been great. Thanks for your time.
Truly, Bruce, I mean,
I'm sure
we
you'll
do
be back.
appreciate you guys. I know it came at no small expense to get the equipment to deal with the filter material.
Yeah,
but
we're
I-
glad to see the progress.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
They want an invite to see it in works.
Okay.
We're actually ahead of.
And I'm not kidding, they really did.
Jim will be more than happy. Thank you. You guys are ahead of schedule tonight.
Yeah, we're planning.
Good.
Once in a while.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But do we go back a little bit?
No, let's,
You got-
is anyone coming for Cooper?
Yes. Everyone's coming for Cooper.
You don't think they would miss that?
Well, actually,
No, for Cooper.
I'm not sure. I haven't heard whether they're coming out. They've asked me what time it is, so I assume someone was coming.
Mhm.
And town council can't make it.
Okay.
You're gonna miss all the fun.
Now's our chance to really get off the rails here.
I guess we might as well go back to the administrative commission vacancy and application period ending April 7th.
So, yeah, so it ended, you have the 2 applicants. I had sent their resumes around, so if you're so inclined, I guess you can, make the recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, or?
I guess I'd
It
want to,
was Rachel and Rob were the 2 left standing.
Rachel, you're here tonight?
Nope,
No?
no, I let them know, but I said they didn't necessarily need to be here. They'll need to go to the Board of Selectmen, but.
Anybody got any comments?
I wish I had the, do you have a copy of their,
Yes.
because I looked at it online, but it'd be nice to have.
All right, well, why don't we do-
Rachel?
Let's keep going on other things while Anna
And
has a
Rob?
chance to look at that so we can stay ahead.
Well, you got
Okay, any
25 minutes to kill, so-
NHESP map content due for June 3rd? What is this?
I don't know if anyone particularly cares. They're coming out with new maps.
Well, I think we do care to the extent that we had talked about it a couple weeks ago. Are they going to show the changes, or are they
They're
not?
not going to show the changes, but there are some pretty potentially significant changes.
So they're
Now,
not
I don't know what
going
it would take to argue with them about this.
I mean,
And usually it's the property owner who does the arguing, although some of them is town land.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
I mean, we may be yelling into the wind with it, but I would be more than happy to issue a comment that it,
So,
without a change log, it becomes almost meaningless.
You know where they are, that's, I guess that's the big, where they
This is
change.
the new map.
Did they give you an overlay or anything?
No, they don't do that. And this is my scribbles, because I had to do it like, you know, from screen to screen.
There's gotta be a way to do.
There's a
There's-
GIS
no,
solution to
There
this.
is. They have to have a layer.
Well, they don't. So for the cross-outed areas that have been taken out, some of them make perfect sense because it's now developed. They actually added some.
What did they add and where? I guess that's more,
They added, where is that?
Is that near Long Pond?
There's gotta be a way to get.
There is, these are GIS layers. This is not a hard thing. Oh, I'm not saying I can do it, I'm,
And
So-
so they could do it.
right.
This is me just eyeballing it, and it's rough, and I'm not sure if it's worth a discussion tonight or not, but
This is like
obviously there's been a lot of changes.
a corridor into the, isn't that
Fort Pond.
Fort Pond?
I mean, if we want this to be
So
a
here's-
useful
here's the
tool
town.
for
This is like
people.
a continuance.
Right. What are those dash lines?
That's areas, the main outline was the pre-existing, and then I hashed out what they have taken off, how they've reduced it.
Yeah.
So for instance, this one over up at Matawanaki, this is all taken out. And that was actually the one I had the biggest question about, because I'm not sure why they took all this out. There are some houses in there, but, you know, there's a lot of undeveloped too, so.
Who actually looks at this? I mean, how do they determine that?
They must look at it carefully because they're
Yeah,
changing
you
a
know more about
map.
that than I do, but it's either because it's been developed, or because they haven't seen any records of whatever was out there, is out there.
If the record is a certain, it hasn't been, a new one hasn't been reported for 20-some odd years, then
Yeah.
it can drop off.
Hmm.
Part of it's if there's, you know, some permitting has taken place in that area, and there's there's a conservation management permit, so if it's not yet developed, it's permitted to be developed, so they drop it off in that respect, but, yeah, as far as I know, they just have a viewer, but they don't allow you to download the shape files and make your own comparisons, so
Mhm.
they're not making it easy to compare before and after.
And I briefly asked Brian Butler about it, said, you know, by any chance, have you overlaid these things? And he said, you can't, they don't. And I asked Natural Heritage, and they say, no, they don't. And it was Brian who said it's usually the property owner who would, you know, question something. And I imagine you'd have to have something specific rather than asking them, you know, why in every space.
I'm not inclined to waste your time, Amy, but there's a simple solution to this. And I would favor submitting a comment that says this is a little silly and,
It's
And-
impossible to compare. where the
yeah,
changes
and
are.
overlay that
And that is
compares the
basically what-
changes, what's been added and what's been subtracted would substantially improve the effectiveness of this tool.
And
And
that's
also
basically what
make
Natural
sure-
Heritage said to me. They said, well, what you're going to do is you need to get 2 screens up.
No.
Thank you.
what's wrong with you doing it? You getting paid enough?
The average
owners
property
would not
owner
be aware
isn't,
of
but
this at all.
those that are informed deserve to know.
Right.
Okay,
Some of them make perfect sense, and I assume some of them are probably because, you know, they haven't had any records, but.
Right.
So I didn't know how much you wanted to delve into this,
I think it's.
or not.
Maybe just the
Or
important
even
ones,
just-
the
just a
big
comment
swaths.
saying, you know, how can we comment on this when we don't know what the changes are?
That's what I'm
Well-
saying, these are GIS layers, they,
Well,
Send
This
us
is
any
not
of the links or any
impossible.
of the data to that. I've got someone who can look at that.
yeah, the big I mean, I think you've pointed out the big swaths, that I would think that would be the most important thing, like the one near
And
Manaquanaki.
the only thing I
The
think that
problem
really
is
didn't
if-
change all that much was the stuff around Spectacle Island,
If-
Spectacle Pond.
if they don't free up the layers so that I can actually pull it into my own GIS software and I can only view it through their viewer,
Mm-hmm.
there's not a lot I can do with it. They need to do it on their end, but all they need to do is reconcile 2 layers and shade the differences.
For the entire state.
But even that is
Yeah.
pretty simple coding. I mean, in some
Okay.
ways, it doesn't matter if you're doing it for a single town or the entire state.
okay,
So I'll pass you the links on these,
Yeah.
and we can
I'd like to move down to one more
Well,
item.
do we need a motion to issue our comments? No?
It's not due till June 3rd, so maybe let's see if someone can manipulate this, and
Okay.
at the very least, maybe the comment can be, how can we comment?
I'd like to
Sure.
move down to the next item there, reapplication for Seawood and Maya.
Oh, it's coming up already?
You'll probably be getting, actually, Clancy had said he was gonna send you 2 notices, but obviously he didn't, so.
No.
I'll double check. It's not imminent, but he just let me know it was coming up.
Okay.
And I guess we better go back to our discussion item. Is Cooper in here tonight?
Or did you wanna go back to the vacancy piece?
Yeah, I'm also, I looked at it again, it's refreshed my memory on it, because I looked at it online.
Well, we can go back to the vacancy. What does anybody got anything want to say about it?
Well, I was just noticing that Rachel Robinson, it doesn't seem like her first priority is Conservation Commission, her first
That's my
choice was
take.
Historical Commission. And that she has a BA in archaeology, seems more focused on historical aspects of the town. She cares deeply about the environment, but it doesn't look like she has much background in it. That was my take. Rachel.
I was kind of leaning towards the gentleman just because he had the forestry, and we don't have anybody that's strong in forestry on the board.
My
Well,
my
that's
critique
very-
of that
That's
is,
very old forestry.
yeah, my critique of that is that he has a degree in forestry. He hasn't practiced in forestry in 25 or 30 years, so.
But he also has a BS degree in wildlife management, so both his degrees are environmental.
Sure.
And then he's been a nature,
He's been
conducted a
teaching
nature
and stuff.
program.
I think
don't
I
know.
was leaning the other way.
For toddlers.
But I kind of agree with you that I felt as though is more leaning towards
Does
the
the decision have to
historical.
be made tonight? Because I'd like to do it when you have the other 2 commissioners here.
Yeah, you can do it anytime.
I'd like to.
It's just closed, so you won't, we're not waiting for.
Sure. No, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't want to have
Yep.
the decision made without 2
Oh,
other
yeah.
commissioners here.
Definitely, yeah.
So I'd ask to put that forward to May 8th.
Okay. Discussion, ratification, enforcement order, Durkey Farms.
Are we not doing Cooper first at 8 o'clock?
Well, you're the sole victim, a sole person? Sure, come on up.
Dan Wells from Goddard Consulting. We closed the hearing, and we had kind of manually marked up where we were gonna have boundary markers at individual
Mhm.
lots, and there was also, 3 of the lots had some plants, and grass seeds specced out. So I sent these to Amy for review. She sent back a couple of comments on 3 of them. We made those changes. I think everything's been updated to Amy's satisfaction. I'm happy to go through them one by one if you'd like. They all have this sign, it says protect, it's kind of what the sign's gonna look like.
Yeah.
The spec for the New England wetland plants seed mix and the height of the Irish blueberries,
Yeah.
so pretty straightforward.
Okay.
I think just a couple questions that I had was, one, when you look at the legacy of the signage on the lots, how are we assured that as ownership makes the transition forward, that someone knows they have to actually still have them and maintain them? I know on previous developments, it's been referenced through the homeowners association, but how can we be diligent to make sure that that gets recorded onto the deed?
Well, it does, see, do you guys want copies of this? If you want a paper copy of the current draft of the, do you want
Is that
Jason?
different than the draft that you circulated earlier?
No,
Okay.
Here you go.
no. What's it worth to you? C-23, I think I was just looking at. In accordance with the conditions just above it, which have about when everything has to be done in terms of turning property over and stuff. Prior conveyance of any residential lot, the applicant has to have the homeowners association, subject to review and approval by the town council and recorded.
On each lot.
On each lot, yes.
Okay.
And what this does, What it doesn't say, and it was clearer for Durkee, because there's more to the signage and the wildlife access corridors and everything, is, the one for Durkee was like 2 or 3 pages, because it had all that stuff in the open space and all the plans. And this is just signed on the plan.
So what are your thoughts? What has been put forth in discussion?
I mean, this is my first time reviewing this language, so I think,
Or do you
Oh.
have language that you'd like to submit?
Well, it does say conditions in perpetuity, does say the signs shall be maintained in perpetuity. And that's gonna be in the order conditions in perpetuity.
I mean, this is the fundamental problem we run into anytime we do this. If a homeowner ultimately wants to take a chainsaw off, cut him down,
But
Yeah,
it'll
you
be
can
in the
stop
order
it if-
conditions, so we would be
they'll
able
have
to.
a piece of paper that says they shouldn't.
Right.
Yeah, but once the order of conditions is met,
It'll be on the
But
certificate
it's
of
in
compliance in
perpetuity.
perpetuity.
It's almost like it's gotta go to the homeowners association or some, have an understanding in that group too, that those things should be, have got to be maintained and met. I don't know.
Part of the O&M plan.
Well, what I could do.
Maybe it's something that should be written in there, that these signs should be reviewed once a year to see that they're in place.
Well, what I can do is switch C23 and CX so that the reference to the signs comes first,
Okay.
and then in C23 add maintenance of the signs will be part of the HOA.
Sure.
With respect to C24, we're requiring the as-built for the certificate of compliance.
That is what's that's what required under the Wetlands Protection Act. So I know there's been some discussion in general about what you need for building occupancy.
Yeah, well, I guess that's what I would like to talk about is
So there aren't
if,
gonna be any partials, so we just have to be clear of that. So when they're going for bank financing or they want to,
I mean, it's a perpetual problem that we don't ultimately see the as-bills. And so,
Yeah, it could be years before you see an as-built.
exactly, long after all of this is done and long after any modifications are viable, if something was done opposite the plan.
And with this one, and probably the same as with Durkee, there's a possibility that the road, because this isn't subdivided yet, the road order condition is gonna be over all these lots as well. So if a lot is ready to go and be finished, but the road isn't, they may come in for a partial on the road order conditions, but the final for the lot.
But,
you can
but
condition
here,
it to occupancy.
I guess that's what I'm saying. Here on the individual lots, the as-built for the lot, not the road itself, but the as-built for the lot can be tied to the certificate of occupancy. I understand we don't necessarily want to tie the road to the certificate of
I
occupancy.
think it would be easier for the prospective homeowner as well to just tie it and then they're done with it. So you tie that to, you're still gonna have some things like the grass hasn't grown
Mhm.
or some vegetation may not be stabilized at that point. You could at least give them a partial if they have the as-built done.
Yeah, because these lots are complicated, because some of them have,
Mhm.
historic
Right,
basins
some
on
are-
them. Right.
And I would be okay with
And the basins actually should go
proceeding with a
first, but-
partial in that case, even if we had.
If they have the,
Yeah.
are you in agreement? Sophia?
yeah, my other question is, could it be a land surveyor too? Does it have to be an engineer, architect, during stamping the plan?
As long as we know where structures are located and anything that goes with them.
Well,
Yeah,
well, actually, because you don't have septic, because if you had septic, you would have to do an as-built for at least that piece of it before you get your occupancy permit anyway.
I wouldn't have any particular problem with it being a registered land surveyor either. What we're interested in is not a engineering as-built here, but a plan.
So we could say registered professional engineer or land surveyor?
Registered engineer,
Registered.
architect, or land
Can we take out
surveyor.
architect? I don't want an architect around this.
Land surveyor.
Any architects? I'd have to check, but I think that mirrors, what's in the Wetland Protection Act. I think they
I
like
mean, this one,
architects.
the original one, or adding?
The word architect.
No, I
It
wasn't
matched-
actually kidding, but we can leave architect.
It matched the Wetland
But
Protection
add,
Act.
add in
Okay.
registered land
I
surveyor.
think that would be easier for you with so many lots.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, do you want to make that a separate condition?
I think it would be cleaner if you make it as a separate condition.
So, an as-built prior to a certificate of occupancy, and maybe a second as-built, depending on what may or may not have been done, having the first, okay, all right.
Your client in agreement of that?
I would imagine. That's reasonable.
Yeah.
I think it's reasonable.
Those were the two questions that I had, was pertaining to as-built and signage.
There's also, there's a misspelling of the sign in CS.
And we're gonna add one that,
Including.
dumpsters on site through construction need to be covered as well. Which hasn't been added, but will be added to this.
And I don't know, Chase, if you had any, just down, opinion about whether or not they need to readopt the SWIP for the,
You know, I think as far
for an
as,
individual lot?
I think that requirement is better handled through the road conditions than individual lot conditions. Because anyone who takes over the lot is assuming those conditions anyway. I find that to be a little
Yeah.
bit redundant.
And then, yeah, I think the rest of it was pretty straightforward.
I'm not sure what, for P3, what do you mean, no use of pesticides is permitted within buffer zone without treatment? What's treatment?
Oh, so is that this,
P3?
The, no, non-ag,
I have no idea. Just take that out. No, use of it is permitted within the buffer zone,
I don't know how,
with the exception of, yeah.
and it says it again, after application of only slow released organic fertilizer is allowed in buffer zone without treatment. Maybe they mean without installation of,
No.
I don't know what they
you
mean.
just take out the words
Yeah.
without treatment.
Oh, and then I wasn't sure if there needs to be anything for the landowner about not mowing basins, or, because that, otherwise it's just gonna be covered by the HOA. I kind of threw that in there to remind myself to ask if you thought it needed anything.
I think handling it by the HOA and
Is-
making
yeah.
that explicit is best.
Right.
Since they ultimately will be responsible, we don't want to confuse anything if one of these owners does actually read these.
Oh, It
Anybody?
looks like P2, oh, is this what you were talking about? The P2 says the signs referenced shall be maintained in perpetuity?
Yeah,
The last.
Right.
So that, okay, so,
You could state that maintained in perpetuity and replaced as necessary or something.
Maintained is,
I don't know. And we have the same condition here that we've talked about. The new owner shall attend a scheduled meeting to review guidelines. Just want to make sure,
Yeah.
we're looking at
We talked
PC3.
about that, yeah.
Make sure you're
Yep.
familiar with that.
I was kind of thinking, as far as the association, that they should have extra signs on.
On hand.
Yeah,
Hmm.
just because it may not be something you have to do a run of them or something.
I'm not sure if that's something a homeowners association, well, I guess there's a president
Yeah,
who would
I-
have them in his attic
Somebody's gotta
somewhere.
be somebody's gotta go check and be responsible once a year, or should anyway.
Do you want me to add that?
Yeah, I think so.
I have a stockpile of them.
That's all I've got.
So I assume you wanna close this out?
Mm-hmm.
We all set to let us
Yeah, I
close
think
it out?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
So I move to order and issue, to issue an order of conditions for DEP file numbers specified on the minutes, 204-838 through 204-849. Are those continuous?
No, they're not continuous, because they withdrew 2 of them.
Excluding which numbers?
838, 839, 840, 843, 844, 845, 846, 847, 848, and 849.
Second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
so it'll take a little bit, just to adopt these, so for a couple days.
Yep, okay, all right. Thank you very much.
So I gotta get this out tomorrow. Do you know if Matt wants to pick them up? I'm kinda guessing he would, but
Probably, yeah, I'll
I'll
just
let
shoot an
let
email.
everybody know when it's ready and
Yep.
let me know if they go in the
So
mail
is
or
this the
not.
one that's gonna go out tomorrow?
This one has to go out
Oh,
tomorrow.
okay. Scratch that down.
Do you have anything we need to sign, Amy?
Oh, I have all sorts of things to sign, including some extras.
All right, we've got to
This is
sign 8
already
of these.
signed. This is gonna be sign every page.
Oh.
Okay.
'Cause I need an original for
We gotta
everyone.
sign all these, so it's gonna take a few minutes.
Actually, you can take them apart and pass them down so you can
Yeah.
keep them in sign
Why
as they
don't,
go.
then why don't we,
No, just, sorry, we'll just keep going.
at the end?
Brian, if you got drawings or anything to lay out, go ahead. It just takes us another minute to sign. Yeah.
Because I do that enough already. Believe me.
So,
I was hoping for that.
6.
Didn't have much dinner.
They'll also melt in here tonight.
8:45.
Pass those down after you sign them.
8:49.
Close to the end.
Sure.
Yeah, there are a couple extra in there, so.
There's some pictures.
Oh, okay. 38, 39, 38, 39, 40, 43.
Is there a box you're supposed to be checking too?
What am I doing? What for? What's everybody?
So we're going back to the discussion items?
Yeah.
Let's talk about Chestnut.
I I wasn't clear if Jeff was gonna make it or not, because he's got that other meeting, so if we can just push him to the end in case they show up, then we can deal with that, if that's all right with you.
I guess we're going back to the,
Are we putting forward the certificate of compliances for future discussions? Are those just continuing to roll?
Yeah.
Distribution center still can't find a 10-foot long 2x12, huh?
I haven't talked to them lately, so I'm not sure what's going on. Actually, I'm going out to Air Liquide tomorrow, because I guess apparently they're done. I actually almost went today. And I'm gonna stop at Middlesex too, and then on Wednesday, where am I going Wednesday? Oh, I'm meeting down at Fred Field's old site, Newtown Road. Look at the
And then you can take off the enforcement order
Yes.
to carry forward.
What's the status of Middlesex? So you said you're going out there to take a look. Have they hit a milestone, or you're just going out to take a
I'm
peek?
just going out to look.
it looked like it's all, the silos are all gone,
Yeah,
and they've regraded, I guess the building was what they left standing, and they've regraded where the silos, or whatever they're gonna put up, has been all regraded.
yeah, I just haven't been out there in a while, so if it was,
No, it's good. Let's
Time
put
to go.
eyes on it before they start constructing.
Okay. So I guess discussion, ratification enforcement order, Durkey Farms, 204-772 Road, 204-805 Lot 9, 204-802 Lot 12, 204-801 Lot 14, 204-817 Lot 7, 204-803 Lot 10, 204-800 Lot 13, and 204-804 Lot 30. Is all under discussion tonight. Someone want to come up and
Everybody can speak into the mic and acknowledge who they are.
Good evening, Brian Goodrow with Hancock Associates, along with Sherry Gould, and the applicants Chris Finneral, Dave Guthrie, and the site work contractor Mike Genetti. So last week, we were out for a site walk showing existing conditions. During that site walk, it was expressed to show a revised plan on Lot 12 with the foundation drain on it. That's what I had just circled to everyone. We will work through the other lots that have foundations that are within the buffer zone that have any sort of drainage on them, and update those notice of intent plans accordingly. Additionally, pond number 2 by Grimes Lane, it was shown during the sidewalk that there was some silt-laden runoff exiting the outlet structure. I believe Mike has since stabilized that. And feel free to chime in, guys, on what work was actually done. But the swale that was behind Lot 4 and Lot 5 was eliminated. Loam was added. The top of the berm was stabilized with erosion control, with hay bales, straw bales. And the outlets of the pond itself, as well as the swale across the street, had straw.
So were you just
Straw
referring
bales.
to
This is
2 or
current
to
conditions.
4?
Yeah,
If
could
anybody
you
wants to
point
To
on
two.
the map to where you're
So,
talking about, because I'm not familiar with the lots.
Infiltration basin 1 is located on Balsam Lane. Infiltration basin 2 is on Grimes. Infiltration basin 3 is at the intersection of Balsam and Fraser. Infiltration basin 4 is behind lots 11 and 12, and 5 is yet to be constructed towards the cul-de-sac.
So now, could you say
I'm sorry,
what you
where's
said?
5, where's 5 again?
So 5 is yet to be constructed.
The one out there, okay.
It's up by the cul-de-sac.
So could,
Okay,
sorry,
so
could
we're
you
gonna
repeat
read-
what you just said
Hold on one
previously?
second, we're gonna renumber.
So 1 is on Balsam, 2 is by Grimes, 3 is at the intersection of Balsam and Fraser, 4 is behind lot 12 and 11, and 5 has yet to be
That
constructed
doesn't need to be discussed.
on
Okay.
Spruce Street.
So you started with the Grimes discussion.
Started with the basin on 2, where, or infiltration basin 2, where the back of lots 4 and 5 had a swale with stone check dams. I believe that was all removed. and it's been since graded and loamed. I don't know if it's been seeded yet,
It hasn't been seeded yet.
but imminently will be seeded.
Or can it be stabilized, because we're about to have a storm in the next
Well,
couple
let's-
days?
Okay, so let's come up with a game plan of how we're gonna address this discussion, because what we'd like to do is to take one at a time, because if we're gonna talk about two, we need to talk about the structure and
Mhm.
how it's not working at times, and so we discussed that out on site. We also, if we're gonna talk about two, we need to talk about what has exited the property on 2 occasions that needs to get cleaned up across from Grimes. So let's just, for the scale of time, let's go ahead and go through, if you wanna talk about basins first, and then go through lots, however you wanna do it, but I just wanna be consistent.
Okay.
So stay on the basin, let's do one basin at a
Yeah.
Okay,
time.
so
That
let's,
was the
let's,
most
Right, and
critical
let's
one.
take that basin from the immediate response actions that we've taken all the way through
Yep.
the long term, what are we gonna do to deal with
Yep.
this? So we can address it, and we can move on.
Okay, so, two,
let's start with one.
start with one.
Okay.
Yep,
One does not have standing water in it, and I don't believe that any issues have been noted with
Okay.
basin one.
the issues that were noted adjacent to one were the wattles in the stream, and we said to go ahead and start to stabilize, which is known as Lot 8, which was done. So when we talked about Lot 8, when we were out on site, noticed that there were drains and asked for, when 8 is finished, to have as-bills done on that. So hay bales, so we had a slide on 8 after not even the big storm. So we asked to have that refreshed there, which needs to be continual because it's almost, I believe, one of them's at capacity now already. Was the silt sack replaced? Because it hadn't been as of Saturday. The one that's in the water when we were on site on Friday.
No, we sourced those today and ordered them. So we can either, we didn't know if it was best to pull that out or leave it until we get the replacement.
Okay.
Going forward, I'd like you guys to have at least 1 or 2 extra on site.
We have a pile of those, but when,
But
I
that's
don't think.
not, it's not designed to be submerged.
We also have the ones that are in the netting, but it's the 8-inch. We have
Okay.
3 rolls of that on site as well, but I think we were looking for something in the 12-inch range.
Okay.
So that's the piece.
So you do have extra
Of course.
for your most common, okay.
So that's the piece we're sourcing. We ordered, I think, another 300 feet of that wattle and another 50 hay bales.
Could you do a temporary measure because of the storm coming up? Could you put in something that would serve similarly?
Yeah, that is so that stream's running clean. There's no source of contamination to that stream. That is an ultimate backup if there is ever a failure somewhere that could
But your
capture.
wattle's inferior now, so the wattle itself that's submerged is ready to go.
So we can pull that and.
And put- and
put
even
it-
put-
We have the
even put-
8-inch. We'll put the 8-inch in.
Okay.
The 8-inch is wrapped in the net, not that biodegradable
But
component.
that'll hold, because I think
Yeah.
with more volume, that's.
Yeah, we're happy to do it.
Who knows what's gonna
downstream.
happen?
Do that.
The netting and jute that you've used to help stabilize here is good, but just be ready for more rain for sure. Wattles that were run on the street after one of the storms were not installed properly, so I think some of them are installed now where they're actually staked.
Staked, yeah,
So,
yep.
okay.
Our goal on that back, we have that septic and sand in today. We didn't cover it, hoping that whatever rain we have will be infiltrated in that sand. When our storm passes, we'll cover that system low mint and we'll jute net that slope to
Okay.
stabilize it. We'll check that hay bale that you,
Yep.
I was out there today twice. We will look for that hay bale that is.
So because you know with the grade that has snuck underneath your erosion control after the first one, so that a lot of the silt went down the hill and kind of got it at capacity, so you just be prepared, you may have to put another row of defense under there.
We're hopeful that we're a week away from that replication start, knowing that we're in the growing season. We're waiting for May 1st for that where you point there, that's our replication area that needs to be built.
But the replication area can't go down the stream.
Oh, I agree with that. I understand that.
Okay.
So just so I'm clear,
So we would like not to see more mud and silt continue down the hill. So just, you've refreshed it once already, but it might continue to happen, so we're just alerting you to stay vigilant on that slope.
Okay.
'Cause
And I'm
it's-
sorry, the jute netting you said is for the Lot 8 slope?
We're going to jute net the lot east,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Because we jute netted the banks adjacent to the bridge.
Right, the
yeah,
roadside
which is-
banks, yeah.
Or added to our stabilization there. We had good growth last fall.
Let's move on to Basin 2.
So Basin 2, as we had just described, that night we had installed straw bales in the outlet structure along the top of the berm and across the street within the swale. Since then, the swale that had stone check dams in it has been removed and the area has been graded, and it was just expressed that it will be seeded.
Wait, those
and then
check dams that are up here?
are
Okay,
gone.
all right.
There's pictures of it in there, if you want to see 'em.
Probably tell if I
So-
looked at that.
so the
Was
out-
that swale part of the plan, part of the design, or was that something that I just?
The stone check dam swale was not part of the design. Essentially, the backyards of lots 4 through 6 and 27 through 29 generally slope towards the basin, so their rear lawn areas essentially will convey water, but not to the degree that swale is doing it.
So what's gonna slow the water down now that the check dams are gone?
Well, it's been graded,
It's rated,
It's not
so,
much of a slope.
okay.
so I think
'Cause
now
before it was really-
it's kind of the contours. The challenge that we had, which we discussed out on site, is that unfortunately, property owner or whomever dewatered one of the lots, which then took place and filled up Basin 2, and the silt overtopped
There's other.
and left the property, went under Grimes and continued down gradient.
Well, I think the important distinction there is it didn't overtop the outlet orifice. It seemed to be undermining the outlet orifice, which is a different problem.
Right. So, but we've had now, this is the second incident of that occurring. The first happened on April 6th, and then the second happened on April 19th, where you can tell by the color, and we were all there. So, we had a significant amount of pretty much mud, leave. So we have to talk about the cleanup down gradient of that. Pictures were taken so you can see all the leaves were all stacked up with a tremendous amount of mud going all the way down. The check dams certainly help, we'd leave those in place. So we have a question of cleanup, down gradient, how that's addressed, but when we've been on site, we've asked for discovery to know what is going on here, and I think you alluded to that something's not working.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So, that's why we're here to discuss what you're going to do about whether it was design flaw or construction flaw. Something is drastically not working. So that's part of your discovery, to come to us and tell us what's gonna happen, and in the meantime, try and figure out how you can self-contain here. So with anything else going on, that we're not going to continue to maximize that basin.
So what I think we'd like to do, based on what we learned from Pond 3, not to jump ahead, is when if we're fortunate enough to be able to proceed to build Spruce, is use one of the lots as a temporary holding basin. Because that ended up what, not by design, but that's what happened in soil Lot 3. On Lot 2.
I mean, isn't Lot 5 your temporary holding basin right now? Kinda nice.
It is, yeah.
I mean,
But-
is that essentially what you're looking for? Is
To
it-
mimic that, yeah, we didn't do that in the beginning, and
Yeah,
we would like to do that in the future, because the primary source of water going to that basin that we speak of, let me back up and say, we would like permission to get into that interface of the structure in the basin and open that up after the rain, because we are in growing season, to see if it's, I don't believe it's natural, the outlet is so low at Grimes Road, it may be a combination of infiltration, but where it's dirty, we think that it's penetrating under the structure, which is set on a thin layer of stone,
Yep.
which is a common technique we've been doing for 25 years. That provides stabilization of the structure, set on a thin layer of crushed stone. And normally when you pack the soil back around the basin, you don't get this infiltration, we're getting it. So we'd like to get in around there to see if it's packed with sand, if there's too much stone under there, whatever the case is. If it's too much stone, we'll pull the structures out, remove the stone, go with the processed gravel, and put the structures back. If it's a case where we've had some settling around the structure, then we'll get in there and compact around the structure, try and prevent any further infiltration that doesn't go directly through the bed of the basin and/or through the overflow porthole.
Could you point on the map where you, was it lot 5 you mentioned could be a temporary?
Is.
Oh,
It already
is.
There's
It
a
is.
Swimming pool.
It
Yeah.
is.
So let's just back up a second, because as we remember, this detention too, if you are allowed to start to develop here, will take some of this road drainage, or the majority of the road drainage, coming down to Spruce and then coming into this detention basin. So one lot may not be enough to handle all your drainage that's coming down while you're doing discovery and redevelopment of this. So this is a concern of us, and that's why we've said, do not start this until we sort out what is going on here.
Well, I think the only way that you're going to see that type of flow would be when we have our manhole catch basins in asphalt with curbing in. Other than that, we're gonna experience controlled runoff via the lots, or sheet draining, or like I am proposing, into a temporary sediment basin on one of the lots as a foundation hole. So I think we can finish that discovery well prior to our pavement timeframe on Spruce. One of the things we'd like the commission to consider is that if we can get started, that we believe we can stabilize a large majority of the site prior to the end of the growing season in the fall. Unlike last year, when we started in the middle of July, we were able to get our shoulder bank stabilized and our pond stabilized, but not a majority of the site, which we believe is wreaking havoc on us. We are now in the process, in this growing season, of being able to stabilize again. But if we could start that road construction, knowing that perhaps we can't pave prior to having the resolution on that basin, we believe we can solve that basin in pretty short order. We just need permission to, we took your enforcement order obviously very seriously, and didn't want to get in there and disturb that basin or open that basin up or try to figure out what's going on. But if we're all in agreement on that, obviously we're hopeful for a meeting last Monday, I understand the holiday, but if we can get into that basin, I think we can solve that in pretty short order, even if that remains.
I'll tell you, in terms of priorities, I'm not inclined to cut you guys loose to do any of that road grading until we've addressed this. And there's really two reasons for that. One is that we have a certain defined problem right now, and I don't want to make it any worse. The second is that then you're focusing on that. Then we get, I agree, you probably can deal with this in short order. So let's deal with that in short order. Get it addressed, know what the problem is, remedy the problem, and then we can come forward and deal with the road.
Yeah, I think this is a shorter fix versus potentially what we have going on other parts of the site. So I feel as though keep it vegetated, don't try and add more water down here, still try and deal with the sheet runoff that's coming in, and try and kind of minimize what's going in here and do a fairly quick turnaround of this. Because if what you're telling us, it's only this area, you already have that already done and it's already vegetated. So I concur with Chase's that I'm very hesitant to open up more of the site when we already have failures throughout the site.
Another question with respect to two, my understanding is that you guys are planning to take a look at that culvert underneath Grimes Lane, is that right?
So as a part of the subdivision approval, we are going to be cleaning out the culvert that's under Grimes and put a camera in it to make sure that it is structurally sound, as a part of this section of Grimes Road that we're gonna be upgrading, essentially between Fraser and Spruce. So that,
Do you have any concerns that either the installation of the basin or the equipment rolling over it or anything like that has caused some type of damage to that culvert that's
Well, because
contributing to or exacerbating this
sinkhole
problem?
on site, you can see where there is a large depression from the road to the culvert to there.
My
So-
guess is if we can get it, we have to expand just that section under this approval. My sense is Grimes Road's gonna transform someday. We're gonna be in there, we'll probably change that out while we're there.
I guess that's what I say. I would rather investigate this holistically rather than put a series of Band-Aids on it.
We would too. We're gonna ultimately own it either way, so we're gonna be in the road. It's easier not to chew up and dig up the new pavement we put down. You know, it's a short money fix at this point, it's a long money fix later.
Understanding, of course, that you've got way more than us to talk to as far as going forward on dealing with that culvert.
Yeah, we need to go
Wait-
DPW, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
But we also
But I
want.
think through Discovery,
I
they'll see
think
that.
might-
Yeah, we
that's
need
something
to,
to say
that
too,
would be
so.
something that we would, I mean, it's old, it's corrugated metal, odds are there's a failure in there somewhere, so we're gonna get in there and most likely deal with it.
My other concern is there is some sort of sinkhole there. I don't know if you're undermining that pipe, you actually have some type of flow.
The sinkhole beside Grimes Lane started long before the construction.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, I walk that road almost every day to get my mail.
Appreciate that.
It started, like I said, long before they even started construction.
Can you give me your name,
There's-
please?
Oh, Douglas Peak.
There's no flared end on the entrance, there's no flared end on the, you know, it needs to be upgraded. It's an old-
That clarification is important, though, I appreciate
It's
it.
an
Now
old-
you might be getting more head pressure, more water pressure. So.
I think it's just an old farmer's.
Okay, so that's, those are our thoughts on 2. Let's move on to.
Quick
Yep.
question while we're still on 2. Are we talking about replacing that culvert as a part of this remediation right now? So get in there, figure out what we
No,
need to do with
no,
the.
no, I don't believe that.
Yeah,
We'd
I would
rather,
wanna
we'd rather be in the
understand-
dry
Yeah.
season, if we could.
Yeah.
I mean, we immediately remediate the issue we have
With the outlet
at the
control.
infiltration, and then we'll deal with that culvert.
But with a degree of, I would like to see that happen
This year.
this year. You know, let's address
Okay.
that in its totality.
Well, I believe that part of our occupancy permits for Spruce are going to be tied into the fire department, the fire department was driving the widening of Spruce between, I mean, the Grimes between Fraser and Spruce.
Right,
Yeah,
this
right there.
section, right?
Exactly.
They were driving that, so I think in order for us to get occupancy over on Spruce someday,
Out of curiosity, who owns Grimes Lane?
it's $1 million question. Town council wouldn't be affirmative on whether it was a town road or not. It receives state funds, which indicates it's a town road. The town meeting voted to rename it, which indicates it's a town road, but there's never a clear history of a transfer of a deed. So it could be us, or it could be,
They're still doing work, so.
we own both sides of the road, which means we own to the middle of the center of the road, under the road, so.
Okay.
I just think it's gonna be a heck of a lot easier for us to deal with that culvert now than someday down the road.
We concur. So ultimately, if you're looking to do this discovery or work, tell us and Amy where you propose to dewater or set up a separate area. You don't have to make that decision now.
Regarding,
Spruce?
No, for fixing this. So before Spruce is started, 2 would need to be looked at.
well, our goal is to get out there right after this rainstorm and.
Is that like a day's worth of work, probably?
Yeah,
I mean, it's gonna be a
yeah.
pretty quick, I would think.
Yeah. So then we'll get that in, figure out what the problem is, report back to you, and if you're comfortable, then we'll come back after this roof piece. We
Right.
completely
We
understand.
have to
yeah.
show good faith that 2 needs to be serviceable first before we impact it with more water coming in.
Yeah, and I think getting 2 squared away is gonna be part of the solution to 3, which I think we're coming to.
Well, let me say, I completely understand your position on 2.
Okay, let's move on to 3.
So Basin 3 is holding water right now, and it has been. I believe it's been identified since February. There's been ice in the bottom of it. It was dry at one point in time.
When was that?
When it was constructed in the fall. Have you ever noticed standing water in
I
that?
started to see it this winter some point, but.
In the winter.
I mean, as we came out of the 15 or 20-year drought that we've been in. I mean, I don't mean that entirely sarcastically.
What I think we've seen here is again, where we weren't able to get on the site early enough, I think we had substantial runoff in various areas that got in and silted the bottom of that pond. What we'd like to do is get the water out of there and get in there and muck that bottom out and
Okay.
start over.
What does get that water out of there mean?
Where are you gonna dump the water?
Well, it's either gonna infiltrate or it's gonna evaporate, or we could pump it.
You mean just wait
So it
until
hasn't done
dries
either
up?
of the first 2, though. It hasn't evaporated, and it really hasn't gone down. I mean, Amy and I have been out there for the last couple months, and, I mean, you guys have even said it hasn't gone down since February, so, and we have had periods of no rain. I don't think it's gonna go down, so.
Well, it's clear, so we can remove it, and then get to the basin. We'd like to get to the bottom of it sooner than later, because
We would as well, because before more construction goes on and more drainage and the opportunity of more silt coming into there, we would like to have 3 part of your discovery But have you done any borings or anything to see, is it in fact,
If you look through the water now, it looks like a lake bottom. It's full of leaves, it's, you know, it's a mess, but I think if we can get in there and get it cleaned out and get our loam layer back a little thinner, because it will sustain the growth. We'll take a couple additional test pits in there to see what we have.
because that was one comment that we made weeks ago when we've always said there's something going on with 3 when we flooded the cross street and nothing, and it was just overcapping and going off. We had mentioned at that point, we really need to get some borings to see if it was through compaction, if it was through soils, why is it not working? So,
Yeah, I would agree.
I kind of,
really like
I
to see
honestly thought
infiltration
that tonight
tests.
that was gonna happen.
Infiltration tests consistent with stormwater manual.
Yeah.
Let's ensure that after we get the silt out.
Well, we'll get the water out after.
After we get the water
Well,
out,
we'll have
after
to
we
get
get
the
the silt
water-
out.
Yeah, we'll get the water out and get in there.
We'd have to get the water out first. After the basin itself is dry, then we would be able to conduct, deep hole testing to figure out exactly what's going on in the
Mhm.
bottom of the basin. Now, I would hesitate to completely scarify the bottom and then reseed it right now, because we're probably gonna be getting back into the same type of situation. So our contention was we were gonna kind of leave it. I mean, if the commission feels that that's not the correct approach, we're gonna leave it for, 4 to 8 weeks. When it gets a little bit drier, we can get in there, see what's going on with it, and do it. Because, as David said, the water is relatively clear. Should it discharge, it's not gonna be discharging silt-laden runoff into the wet meadow. And additionally,
But
we
we're
do have those
discharging
two
even when there aren't big storms. So, this doesn't have a tremendous amount of capacity left. So, and that's, here again, taking on faith that there's no other breaches, and then all of a sudden this is dirty, and it's leaving the site. So there has to be some type of assurance, and I don't know that with an open site that you can make those assurances. Just like 2 was in fact, working for a while, it was clear until it was dewatered. Well, until it was dewatered into.
So the basin itself doesn't have to be a functioning infiltration basin right now. It could be serving as a temporary sediment basin to ensure that water is not being discharged, it's laden with silt. So to fully reconstruct it and create the final infiltration basin, if you will, if something were to happen with the inflow, we would be going into the same situation again. I mean, it's very common that these basins get silt-laden runoff, they don't infiltrate properly, and then we have to go back and remediate them. So I guess it's our we want to, based on this conversation, I think dewatering it is obviously going to be the best temporary solution. At the same time, when there's no more water, the water's manageable to a degree, we can dig holes and go through that discovery process to see exactly what's wrong with it. However, I would still hesitate to fully reconstruct the bottom of this until that half of the site is stabilized.
Well, this is why we always ask for developments of this scope to build these basins first, to make sure that they're working prior to turning streets on, drainage on, building homes. So you have to understand, our main goal is to protect the wetlands down gradient. And so we've had enough failures, so that's why we're here at a cease and desist. So up to the commission, I think it's great to go ahead and dewater this, not into the wetlands. But here again, we still feel strongly that discovery is part of the remedy for you all.
And once that dewatering occurs, that's a point where we would be
So I
able to dig.
think under the enforcement order, that would be one of the things that we would discuss tonight, is to go ahead and lift portions of that so you can go ahead and start to work on number 2 and to work on dewatering 3.
Let's talk about what we mean by dewatering in
Well,
a
in terms-
concrete, quantitative sense.
Yep.
I think you got 2 different ideas of what dewatering is.
Yep,
Exactly.
exactly. Yep.
No, and that's what I'm interested in hearing. When you guys say dewater it, tell me your approach.
So, There's typically two ways that it would happen on a site of this scale. It would be pumped to another temporary location where it can go into the ground, or we would be cleaning it and then discharging it where it ultimately goes. And that cleaning, for the amount of water that's in this, is something like a filter bag. I know flocculant has been tossed around quite frequently, but the amount of water that's there, and given topography and the way that these lots are
Outside of resource area.
You sure you're not sitting on a spring?
sitting on
A spring?
a spring.
And groundwater.
Oh, I
So
think we're
we-
gonna have that discussion in a couple minutes.
Our site has been developed such that the existing grade was either maintained or elevated. So with that not having been in a resource area, with that area and testing all around it being indicative of groundwater from 3 feet to 2 feet in that area, there should be ample separation from the practice to actual groundwater for that to be happening.
But when did you test the groundwater distance from surface?
It would have been last year, and it was throughout the year. I mean, we were out there quite a number of times. Now, groundwater is determined by redoxomorphic features. It's basically modeling or it's rust of the soils. So it's not based on actual physical observation of groundwater. While that may be present at some depth in the hole itself, you can get the redox on the soil itself, which is caused by the fluctuations seasonally. So we determine it based on what's the highest estimated seasonal high groundwater.
Let's talk about getting back to the options for dewatering. I don't know that you have a tremendous amount of sheet flow that comes down off the property and into here, that would not be an area that you'd be able to discharge in. So I don't know where you would remedy. We've had numerous sites that dewater by hauling off. You are shoehorned in between wetlands on either side, so historically, there would be a place where you could dewater safely.
Well,
So, the commission, you can put forth suggestions, but the commission can give you feedback on that.
if I may, sorry, I'm gonna come. We've identified probably a 2-acre area over here that is a depression on our land. We own the land across the street, 8 acres back here. No wetland around. It's grassed, it's a depression. We could use our watering truck, pull this out through a bucket of stone and unload our watering truck over here. 2-3 loads a day, whatever it is, not flood, we don't want to flood this area in case it leaches.
Isn't that a fairly substantial grade going down?
Well, if you were to get back here, it undulates, but it sits in here, probably a 2-acre piece that sits sort of as a moderate depression, which we think would contain the water.
Because in what we noticed out a couple times is you cross under Grimes and you come down and you pick up your wetlands, which is off locus here, where the silt is, that this wetlands then splits. So the water that you sent down the other day then ran kind of that way, but then there's a wetlands that goes that way. So you would have to look at here where that water's gonna go.
I think it's,
It is gonna go back down, it's gonna chase back around to this wetlands here.
I don't think we'd dump that much where it would come up over
Well, you can do,
an undulation.
you'd be able to figure out volume. They could shoot how much volume is in that pond,
Mhm.
and you could make sure that that could hold that, or a combination of both. Trucking somewhere else and putting some there. But you'd actually have to stake out the area that you want and probably do some soil samples, not big, huge soil samples, but to be able to know if it can hold it, just so it's not gonna sheet all the way down, because it will.
I mean, we can certainly do some calcs based on soil type. We have extensive testing in this whole area. Soils are relatively consistent.
We would ask you for current, so to map where you want, stake it out, and to do some current samples there, if that's an area that you wanna use for dewatering. And then you would show that on a separate plan and, create it as a dewatering, so to put a, siltation barrier around it as well, even though it's vegetated. So that's an option.
Are we considering everything that impacts though? I mean, what,
No, we
I-
wouldn't
I
until-
honestly
until
don't
they te-
know.
Until they tell us where
Yeah.
that site is and you go out and look at that. I wouldn't commit to anything until you can actually go look at that land and walk down and see. So you're asking us to
you
comment
folks are
on,
welcome to come
Yeah,
on
you're
up
welcome,
if
yeah.
you would like to see it.
you're asking us to comment on a piece that we don't walk. But that could be an option for you.
And also, while you dewater, you mentioned putting a silt sack around your pipe.
It's clean.
Well,
The water's,
I understand it looks clean from the top, but as you get down low,
I agree with that.
it may not be anymore.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
you've got to, I would think, protect the inlet of the pipe
Mm-hmm.
from silt getting in.
So it sounds like you have to bring some feedback to us for 3, but we're,
It'd be all right to let one of the commissioners or Amy go out and check this out so we don't tie it up.
yep, I mean, once they have their calculations done for volume and have the area, a perimeter, and have a separate plan, and do some soils on that, I think Amy and a commissioner can go out. I wouldn't want to put the onus on her, solely for that. And to come up with basically a construction sequence of what you're gonna do in 3, including your discovery.
I really like the idea of a construction sequence. I
Yeah.
wanna know exactly what we're gonna do, when we're gonna do it, you know, if we're not gonna scarify it right away, if we are gonna scarify it right away, exactly how we're gonna attack all of those pieces. Consistent plan, something that we can hold you guys to, and something that you can
I mean, that's like what we
have
did
defined
anyway.
expectations with.
Got through the winter. We did something similar to this, 15 Great Road. Okay, let's move on.
The point had to do that too, they had to filter through hay bale corral and filter bags
Exactly.
for basin 1.
All right, so let's,
I mean, how deep is the water in that basin? you think?
They were going to
What,
calculate the
maybe?
volume.
No, yeah.
Yeah, it's
So,
pretty shallow.
I mean, you guys only,
Not a lot of
only
volume.
We're
have
not dealing with
20,000 gallons.
Right, we're not dealing with a tremendous amount of volume here.
Anna's right, it's gonna get mucked
Mhm.
down the bottom.
No, absolutely, but given that it probably only has, let's say, 20,000 gallons, I would rather you guys, instead of losing 2 trucks, you know, 2 5,000 gallon trucks a day, we need to balance this, right? Between how quickly we pull it out of 3, how quickly we could possibly lose it elsewhere, so,
Well, we'll see that in the plan that they.
I would think so,
We can
yeah.
certainly do that calculation.
But I-
See whether it gets
The
replenished.
goal is not necessarily to get it all out as fast as possible
Right.
if where we're gonna receive that water can't accommodate that.
Right,
All right, let's talk about number 4.
Uh,
One of the only ones I think is working well.
Yeah, so basin 4, it,
That's the one they wanna bury.
That's not part of this
That's
discussion.
It's a future discussion. So, I believe the discussion on Basin 4 revolved around the drain that was hanging out in the yard, and we have issued and updated the Lot 12 NOI plan to show the as-built location of that drain. And as it was described on the sidewalk, I believe it's just a perimeter foundation drain. There are no roof leaders tying into it. The house is not guttered, and I don't think we've seen evidence of water coming out of it.
We built, those are precautionary, and I apologize that they weren't on our original filing. They're not on every lot. We do them where we can daylight. We can't daylight on 3, we can't daylight on 4. Can't daylight on 5 or 6. 7 we could, and then of course this side, but we
But you put them on 8.
can daylight on 8, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And it's precautionary as, you know, I've been doing this for 25 years, and we've always installed them if we can to daylight. We build obviously out of the groundwater, out of the estimated seasonal high
It's just that
groundwater.
you're within, I mean, you're really in resource areas with some of these houses.
We can remove them if that's the pleasure of the board.
I'm
Yeah,
not
I-
necessarily interested in seeing them removed. I think that the damage caused by doing that work would be worse than the drain itself. But I would like to make sure that the plans notes and the conditions associated with each lot note that roof leaders are not to be fed into those. And as a perimeter drain, okay. But let's not find ways to just keep pouring water into those. If they become a conduit for lots of other surface water, then they become a real problem.
So I think, I can speak for myself that I think lot 12 is fine. I'm okay to release 12.
That's the one that's on the
Up
separate.
on the corner.
lot,
It's been
yeah.
hydroseeded and those signs are all up.
Yeah,
And that feeds into that,
it does, but that's all,
Catch
that's
basin,
all
the
stable.
basin.
It
That's
goes into
stable.
basin 4, which is, yeah.
right,
So that
which is
part-
working. so.
That part is stable.
Can we briefly talk about the language, adding the language to the order relative to the roof drain
Okay.
and what you'd like to see?
Is the roof drainage?
No, sorry, perimeter drain, I'm sorry, no roof drain.
No roof drain. The houses are not guttered.
It has to be on the as-built. So we're accepting that what is there is there.
So when we go for the COC, you just wanna see.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
no other discharge to it other than the perimeter.
As a note on the plan, or you want us to add that to the order? We're gonna transfer.
I'd just assume see it both places.
Right.
Okay.
Before we move ahead, I'd like to make a
You
motion.
can add it to the order.
I'm asking if the language needs to get added to
So
the
we're
order.
not gonna change the order conditions on it or anything.
Okay, so it's gonna be a footnote on the plan.
You meant the enforcement order though, I think.
So I'm gonna actually.
No, I'm sorry, I was asking about the order conditions, but it's gonna be a footnote on
Yeah,
the,
it's not
it's gonna be a
gonna-
footnote on the
Footnote on the
two.
plans.
Yeah.
On,
Yeah,
on
so
the.
I
It's
got it.
going to the building
On the-
department. and
I got it
also-
now. Yep, thank you.
So before we get ahead, I'd like to make a motion to release 204-802, also known as Lot 12, from the existing cease and desist.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Okay, so let's carry on talking about 4. Any other discussion with how, we're under the impression that it's working, so that we're not gonna make any changes to it at the present time.
Correct.
Okay. Do we wanna talk about the farm pond next?
Can I talk about this pond? What I'd like to do is,
Detention,
yes,
not a
4?
pond.
okay.
Should we just call it a pond?
Potential 4?
Infiltration basin.
Infiltration.
It's
Do we wa-
slang layman's
Do we
term
wanna
from the
get into
field.
what we're planning for the future? Or-
No,
this-
that's not for
this is-
tonight.
This is a cease and desist, we're not getting into any future discussions.
No, I would like permission if there's any settlement around this basin to get in there and maintain that.
At the present time?
The outlet structure?
Yeah.
And that would be true for any of these infiltration
But
basins.
you're just
If-
starting to get good seed cover. So this, as you walk down, you're still sliding, it's still wet. I would probably wait a few weeks to get your banks truly stabilized. I mean, they've just gone through winter, and I think it's doing well. I would caution you, you have the rights to,
It's handwork.
to clean it. Yeah,
Handwork.
handwork is fine,
Yeah,
but no,
handwork.
no
That's all.
equipment.
No.
But even your banks, as we were
Yeah.
walking,
Okay.
is very
We'll wait.
mushy.
What do you see that you feel like you need to address?
Just around the structure on the inside of the pond, gaps where something's settled, that's all. You know, whether it be loam settled or what, just maintenance.
You can do it, we just caution you that you don't
We'll
wanna
wait.
break down the banks of what are just trying to grow
Yeah.
right now.
We'll wait.
Okay, farm pond?
Farm pond?
So the farmer's pond, as is quite evident, the water level has risen to an elevation that I don't think anybody historically has seen before. And we're still trying to determine exactly how it happened, and what our remedial fixes are going to be. Now, it's our contention that a lot of that, and while it is a lot of water, came from the fact that the site is disturbed. And it was clearly funneled into that low-lying area. Now, it's at an elevation that's higher than where historically it would have been able to flow overland and make its way towards the wet meadow. So I think for the fix that we need to do right now is we need to drop the water level elevation to what it historically is, reestablish the erosion controls that are currently being submerged, stabilize the slopes with jute netting and what was successful by the wetland crossing. And then for a long-term fix, we're still evaluating exactly what we want to do, but potentially it would be a roadway cross culvert at that historical elevation of what was the existing grade in that area.
Roadway
Where?
cross culvert,
Where
help
would
me
the-
understand
Yeah,
what you're
could you
talking
point
about.
to?
So we would be looking to put a pipe basically across the road, right around this area.
Oh, so would
Down
access
some-
this
E-
wetland?
Exactly, and then go down through lot 11 and have a discharge point here, and that would be at the elevation that the ground was in that area prior to the road.
Not an amended order. That's a whole other filing.
That would probably be down a lot line, so as you don't have it
It
on.
would be on lot 11, we're thinking right now.
To be perfectly frank, I'm not convinced that you've identified the problem. And I think it's way too premature to identify that as the solution if we haven't identified the problem. Putting the solution, before we know what's causing it, we can talk about ideas, but
Right.
you've acknowledged that we don't know what's causing it.
Which is what we're doing right now, that's why we haven't put a plan before you.
Can I ask a question of one of the members in the audience? Eddie, is that spring-fed, that pond, do you know?
No,
It's not.
no. It's just a surface water thing. That whole property used to slope towards the, say, Foster Street.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it doesn't slope to Foster Street anymore. They made a dam.
Did you ever observe that pond actually overflowing the banks and flowing down that slope towards Foster, or was it?
No, I
Okay.
never did.
Had you ever seen it that high?
Well, no, because it never was,
Never was
it
dammed
was
up.
never out of the banks, really. It was just a surface water. They dug it for surface water when they had dry period. It never became dry again.
Did it always have water in it?
Yeah, even last year, as dry as it was, it had water in
It
it.
sounds like
Spring
groundwater,
fed.
yeah, it sounds spring-fed.
It isn't.
Yeah, but if it held
I was
water.
there when they dug it.
Yeah.
They dug it with a bulldozer and just pushed the dirt around, and it slowly filled in. It didn't bubble in. The only spring there is surface water.
Part of your discovery.
But I think one of the key points, regardless of if, while we're understanding exactly how this happened and formalizing what we'd like to do as remediation, is to get the water out of there and reestablish this erosion control line and stabilize the slopes on the side of the road down in there.
But I just fear that you're just gonna get the water out of there and then it's gonna get back in, because
And
It's
then
gonna
you killed the
rain.
ecology twice.
I don't think, once you get the water out of there, you redo the erosion control, it's gonna fill up again. You know,
Well, there's no way it can get out of there, it's trapped at this point. I'm not saying, but I would also think I would, on your discharge, you'd put in some flashboards or something, just so you can,
Yeah, but that is all dirt. You can't discharge that anywhere on site. That would have to be flocked, and that's as dirty
yeah,
as
I
it
was
comes
wondering
now.
where you're gonna
So,
discharge it to.
Right, now we're talking about more than.
Yeah, now you're talking like
Trail
Army
loads.
Corps. I don't think
So-
that we're gonna come to any consensus on this without discovery.
But tell me, in terms of your conceptual model of how this fits together, is the water in the farm pond related in any way to the undermining of the catch basins along lots 13 or
13.
14? Are those coincidental that they are co-located, or are they somehow related?
So the catch basins that are in that area are actually higher than the farm pond, the historic elevation of it. So the failure of the pavement itself, it could have been standing water going through by the actual structures themselves, down and then out the wall. It's significantly higher than where that water elevation is at right now for the two of you.
Because on numerous times when we were out on site, you could hear the water rushing into the catch basins, and you had a lot of water behind 12, 13, 14, 15. So this water that was behind here was either just captured there through construction, but you could hear the force of water coming through those catch basins.
We
while
can
you were
certainly get-
standing
We
there.
can certainly get in the catch basins and see if there's, anything ingressing
this-
into them in
what's this
terms of
tile?
groundwater. But again, it's
Tile over here.
important to remember that that whole area was
The
elevated
tile
from historic
that's over there
grade.
next to the stone wall, and it's got a metal cover on it.
Yeah, that's a manhole for this drainage system that comes in through,
So there's
Where-
there's two catch basins right here, to a manhole, to another manhole back here that discharges to basin 4. So that's just an angle point in the
All
pipe.
of that is going there.
Correct.
None of that is coming this way.
Nothing is going that way. We're conveying all the water to basin 4, which, as we've seen in the sidewalk, is.
So your argument is that the failure around those two catch basins is
gonna be
coincidental
is gonna be localized because of the road, yeah.
and unrelated to the water in the farm?
I wouldn't imagine it could be, given the elevation is so much higher and that whole area was in fill. Lot 13 is fill, lot 12 is fill, the road is in fill.
How many other catch basins have failed that way on site?
Have you seen any?
I think we have one down here that's depressed. Right in here.
Do you attribute that to the time of season, or perhaps the fill, or the compaction rate, or some, it's odd to have failures, at least in my experience on sites, to see this, to see the depression so large?
Up there, I think it was built in the dry season. I don't know that we got quite the compaction that we wanted. We got it in the road. We had a BOMAG out there pounding, vibrating. I just don't think you get as close to those structures as you hope with that large machinery, and that becomes handwork, 1-foot layers. And I think there's room for error in that, so that's
Do
why
you
I
think that could be the catalyst to the issue of 3 as well, in terms of compaction? Of why that might be not working?
Over
Just-
compaction at the bottom?
I think I'd rather get the water out and get a few holes in and see what the heck's going on than guess for you. I think I
Well,
would be guessing.
that's a segue to my next question is we've said we need to investigate this, but tell me what investigate means
For the farm pond, you mean?
for the farm pond.
For the farm pond itself.
Yes.
Ed Mullen, 10 Gristmill Road, member of the planning board. Just wanted to take a moment and ask if the Conservation Commission would be so kind as to actually forward us the order of conditions for our next meeting, so that my board is taking an active interest
Order of conditions,
that you are going to establish for these guys regarding,
that's not part of the discussion tonight. We're under an enforcement order, so.
oh, that's right, enforcement order. We want to just be able to review what your enforcement order is
Correct.
before we move forward with any permits regarding
Yep.
this development. So,
Lauren has it, but I'll forward it on.
terrific. I have to go, so.
Yep.
So, thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thanks for coming in.
Yep. So, prior to that, we were talking about,
What does investigate mean?
okay.
Regarding pond 3 or the farm?
Farm pond.
Okay.
The farm pond itself.
I mean, I'll tell you what I want it to mean, but I don't think you want to
Yeah,
pay
no,
for it,
let's-
so.
Well,
Why don't we look, I mean,
pleasure of the commission.
Why don't you tell us what you want it to mean, and let's see.
I mean, I'm skeptical that we don't have some non-surface source here. I think Jim is too. Understanding, that's very helpful insight.
But who knows when it was dug? We don't know whether it was
He
in a.
doesn't.
Oh,
Because
I
he
know.
was there.
No, but I'm saying, what kind of situation, whether it was a dry, time,
We had,
dry
about,
year, dry 2 years?
it was around 76, 77, 78, right around there. It was a dry part.
Yeah.
And he, Mr. Durkee, had trees, he grew trees. Well, the trees were dying. He bought himself an old oil truck, and he used that for watering, and he used to water it. So he went in there,
Did you know that?
he rented, he got a bulldozer, somebody, and they dug it all out, and then just pushed the loom around, and then, as time went on, it filled up when it snowed through the winter. But when he dug it, there was no spring, there was no bubbling of water.
See, but that could be just that the groundwater was low and.
Oh, it was low.
Well,
It was low,
It
And
probably intercepts groundwater, it's just not a spring.
but yeah,
It's meant to it. It's
Right.
hit
I have
dry.
a, I
right,
have
but there
water
could be
come,
groundwater fed.
I have water coming out of a rock on my property right now. But it's just groundwater. It dries up it never comes out past, maybe May or June. That's it.
Understanding that the site is torn up pretty badly, so the data could be questioned. I'd be interested to know what the groundwater elevation looks like.
You can do it on this side.
So we have test pit data in that. We have test pit data on lot 13. I believe we dug in that area as part of our due diligence during the planning board process that we can share with you, that the groundwater elevation was below the historic ground elevation.
Yeah, but I think we've come out of 2 years of severely dry weather. You know, it started a year and a half ago in the late summer, and it continued through all this last year.
So when we,
I think what the engineer's saying though, Mr.
Yeah,
Pickett,
I'd
is
like
that
to
this
see
test pit data is modeling, so he can see historically with the water levels.
correct, it doesn't take 1 year or 2 years to establish readings.
So basically, you want to look to some undisturbed virgin soil, and you own to the back of 1314, you could put a monitoring well in any of those areas, or an area that is undisturbed, and you would be fairly quickly to see what your water levels are like.
Yeah, I'm interested in a relative groundwater elevation.
So.
But you gotta be fairly close.
Yeah,
I
and,
think
and
going on to
again,
Cape
we have
Humphreys got a
dug
little
in
far.
these areas, we have that elevation that we can share with the commission.
I'm not disputing
talking
that,
about
but the fact of the
permits.
matter is that there's never been this amount of water in this pond.
And your data was done during a dry season.
I mean, it very well could be just some streams going through, just underground streams that feed it somewhere along the way.
Well, I think the reason we haven't had it there is because we always had relief at 263. Our water's at 265 now, obviously our road's higher than that, but there was always natural relief at 263.
Correct.
So
Might have not have
Where you're
noticed it.
talking about putting a culvert. Is
at
that what you're talking-
263, so
At
it
263.
it
At the
emulates the
historic elevation.
pre-construction conditions.
And and it may have overflowed just through the grass, and you might not have noticed it either.
Just periodic.
I mean, it just could
overflowing.
have,
Correct.
a spring type
Well,
year.
you may even have noticed it. We obviously weren't out there, and I
Yeah.
don't think you folks were out there as well, so it's,
Yeah.
obviously it could flow over land and,
But how do you propose to dewater it? I guess that's gonna be the big question.
They're not gonna dewater until they do discovery though, so
Yeah,
they
because-
can come back with solutions, but that, I don't feel as though that can be
Well, yeah,
resolved.
what are they trying to discover?
Where I would still like to see current data, not dry data, like behind 13.
Dig a hole in 13 and find readouts.
I
Again,
mean,
let me,
I'm more interested in actual groundwater than the redox conditions. Yeah, I completely understand the value of redox in determining high water levels. But we had a relatively benign event, and we've filled this thing up. So I think we need to do the work to figure out where that water is coming from and ensure that it is in fact just surface water before we pursue a remedy that could involve moving all of that water across to the other part of the road. Again, we're talking about a remedy before we even know for sure that
Right.
that's just surface water.
Well, I'd change my time frame, check my time frames, because this was full before that 4 inches of rain over that week period. It was full before then.
Which
How
points
about when the
even more to
snowstorm, how
groundwater.
about in February? Do you,
I'd have to go back and look. I definitely remember the basin, because I was like, that can't be right, and just sort of wait and
So
see.
for 3 was definitely full,
Yeah,
but then
I'd have to go
Farm
back and
Pond-
check the photos on 4. But
However,
I felt about the same way. I was like, that's high, maybe it'll come down, but it didn't.
well, let's talk it through though. If it is groundwater, say if we prove that it is groundwater fed, it won't change the fact that it fills up and that,
It's always gonna
but
fill
it's
up.
gotta discharge to something somewhere along the line.
But
or
it's always
got-
gonna have more capacity.
so, but if it did have a relief to go to the wetland through lot, what,
11.
11? I mean, how could they prove that, and also, because if that's gonna be the ultimate solution, if it is groundwater fed, then there needs to be some discovery about that too. How do you
Right, but
prove
that's-
that it used to flow from
That's what
that
they,
pond?
that's their
Wetland?
job.
Because basically, if they had the relief, once you get it all drained and you have the relief there, it's not gonna build up the way it is now.
Well, we'd have to talk about, okay, if they're gonna provide relief,
The curbing.
where are they gonna put the pipe? How low do they want it to go?
That component of enforcement.
When do they want it to overflow into the wetland?
Well, I think to answer your question, we would set it at the pre-construction grade level, which was 263.
Question, so your deduction of why there's so much water in the pond is because there was no curbing section over here. So you felt as though everything came in here through this over here. Would you like to go ahead and, because I don't believe that this is gonna get solved quickly, would you like to go ahead and put a berm in there so that way, or are you just gonna keep using the wattles?
No, that is a low spot right there, right? Is there a catch basin planned for?
No, so the catch basin's a little bit further down
Okay.
gradient.
So we would not be opposed to having you do work to try and do that, if that's something that you would like to do. If not, you just have to keep that
So,
closed and stable.
so talk to me
lot
about
number's
the
that?
water in that
That
low
is
spot,
7.
essentially where it runs off the road,
Water
right
flow.
now, where it runs off the road into the farm pond. Do I recall correctly, that is a low spot in the road, or is that, Was
It's not
that just a-
it's not designed as a low spot, so
Okay.
while there's no curbing there, it would convey whatever's coming down the gutter into the low-lying area that's not the catch basin.
okay.
But it's not intended, nor will it remain that way, because there's not a structure there.
Nor will it remain as in the road's gonna get higher in that low spot?
The road will need to be.
I don't think
repaired
necessarily there's
however
a
it
pocket in
needs
the
to,
road, I
but
think
don't-
the.
Okay,
the-
and maybe I'm not recalling the
the-
details correctly.
I think the
so-
fill past the road is low, but I think we'd,
I was
sorry,
talking about
the fill
over here.
past the road is low, I think we'd love to get a berm in it, we'd love to stabilize this lot if we could. And slow down additional flow to it through
Yes.
vegetation.
I would be concerned, though, that you've got pre-construction elevation of the pond when, after a drought. And is that really the true?
No, it wasn't, sorry,
Elevation of the
sorry,
pond.
it wasn't, I wasn't speaking to pre-construction elevation of the pond, I was speaking to the pre-construction elevation in the field. So if the pond was to gather sheet flow from all over the site and elevate, it would, the standard level of the pond is lower than the surrounding vegetation, it would then overflow and sheet out at 263.
So right now, from the corner of the house on lot 7 to the actual water, we're at like 22, 25 feet right now?
I don't know those, I haven't measured that.
But you staked, we asked you to stake the pond,
Right.
so which are staked,
Yes, it has been.
so it's staked.
Yeah, they're out there.
So I know when I paced off, it was, at that point, between 22 and 25 feet. But then as part of the original, when we had failures, we said, go ahead and stake it and shoot the elevations. So what I'm hearing is that it got staked, but nothing, there's been no surveying to know.
So I believe Mike got that elevation?
Yeah,
you shot it.
that's 265, we shot it at 265.
So you're saying it's 2 feet above where the pre-construction grade is that what,
Yeah, that low-lying area that would have provided relief to what's now currently in a flooded condition.
So to note that all the town's open space and wildlife corridor access is all submerged. To
The ducks are loving it, though.
the fish are
Yeah,
happy.
they are. Yeah, there are mallards out there.
What use of it is,
Yeah.
I mean, with the elevated road.
Oh, but yeah, I mean, there's, yeah, yeah. Okay, where are we with other,
Can you stand where you're talking about stabilizing 7 as being beneficial rather
I
than?
think what you could do for 7 is put down your matting like you did on 8. to get some stabilization.
Which one is 7?
I don't know how much you're gonna get.
7
but-
is the waterfront lot.
Oh, yes.
Do you want us to complete that yard, or do you want us to wait?
I would just
Not with the
temporarily
coming rain,
just put down some matting or
no. Something.
something, can spray in a tackifer after the rain.
I think we may differ on this opinion, Sarah. I don't know where you guys stand, but I'm not opposed to the idea of getting some of that water out of the farm pond either, just in terms of ensuring flood capacity. I mean, we know we have an event coming, but
The other
is there
thing,
value in,
the other thing is
Give
if
them
you
license.
pull some of the water out and see whether it goes back up again, then you know you've got groundwater moving through
But
that.
to be clear, and I know that Carl was very passionate about this, that if water comes out of there, it's not going on this site, because it would have to be flocked, it would have to be, there's no discharge of that water on the site, it's far too dirty.
But it just seems like if you pulled some out, then you can water it to see if it goes back up again.
I mean,
Lower, yeah, after the rain.
I understand Carl's concern. The applicant certainly could implement a mechanical solution, a bag filter or something similar, to knock down the TSS before discharging it.
I would be opposed to it.
Okay.
I asked Amy why, prior to the last rains, when the stakes were up, that the level of the pond was still rising, even though we had not had any rains in a few days. So I'm curious why the levels still do fluctuate of the pond. So, but you're out there every day, you must see what I see, and
Well, I start going down before the last rain event, or the last 2 rain events. I start going
and
down
it did go down a little bit, but then all of a sudden it rose before it even rained.
before it rained.
So, Can I propose this as an idea too, in terms of, let's get as much data as we can. Surely you guys have some relative survey point out there. Let's, on a daily basis, collect relative elevation information for this pond.
Or put a monitoring stake out there and.
Or
the
put a
elevations on
monitoring
it
stake
and,
or something.
take
Let's
readings.
collect daily data to understand how this fluctuates in response to precipitation events. I think that will help us answer some of these questions.
I think we also have to make sure that the road is truly kept clear. Your basin does up here still have a lot of dirt in it. At your stop, at your intersection here, to make sure that the road stays clean.
Yep.
I am curious why this still takes on water after, 0.08 rainfall or 0.28 rainfall. So this past, on the 22nd, when this photo
Saturday.
was taken on Saturday, you still had water.
What I think is what we have there, we've got 1% on the road there, pitch. We need to add a catch basin. If I may.
Yep.
We have one here. This comes down here and in theory drains in a gutter here. I'm gonna go on the record and say I don't think that was the best design, personally. I think we need to add a catch basin here to pick up the rainfall from down this road here, so that it doesn't come and cheat across. And then at 1%, if you have any settlement around that catch basin, you're going to get a puddle. And I think that's what we're experiencing. So we would like to add in a catch basin here. Obviously, it needs to go catch basin manhole. And then when we do our finished pavement, we'll be shimming to get.
We'll do that after we address 3 though, because
Oh,
right
I
now
agree.
I don't
No,
want
I
to add
agree.
any more water.
Yeah, no, I agree completely, yeah. But that's why I think what's happening to that intersection, it's tough to build
So,
roads at
I'm
1%.
submitting that of record,
Easy to design them, it's difficult to build them
and
at 1%.
then submitting of record April 6th and then 12th with exit. Debris that needs to get cleaned up across Grimes. So we would ask for cleanup, exit of Grimes to be addressed at some point. So still of discussion is that, I think we have some work orders that obviously everyone's taken notes today. Under enforcement, we still have under the enforcement order, the road and all the other lots, the only one that, as of tonight, that's been released is 12.
Out of curiosity, where's the water coming from that filled that cellar hole that's over in here?
This one here?
Number 5.
4 or 5?
No, it's pretty close to
5 or
this,
6
but
of
it
them,
must
yeah.
have been in here someplace that I saw.
So we had,
Oh, 5.
a lot of what we had here was, we had Phil come in here for the road, we had loam screened here, we had a bunch of depressions, we had natural topography here, and I think we just had a collection of water that sat over there and ended up,
That isn't where one of those tiles were, is it? There was 2 tiles in the field in a depression there.
You're asking if I think that's groundwater?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because I have basements here.
You have water in that one.
This was an isolated event where we had settling around the bulkhead and around the house, so we had water sheeting around the house like this, which was supposed to come out and spread here, and it was coming down and shooting down the bulkhead. We emptied that water out of the basement, it hasn't been back in.
How many days did you empty?
1.
At least 2. I was there 2 days in a row, and they had changed the drains, one down the road and one on the back of the house. So a minimum of 2 days.
You think
Photos.
that ran 2 days?
I have photos that it ran 2 days.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, we pumped it one day and then installed the ejector pump as a backup, and to my knowledge, that pump's gone on.
So we find
once
that there's a key to
since it's
good
been installed.
communication with development.
So there's an active, yeah, come up. Where'd you install the
In lot 3,
Lot 3?
Which is on the corner, which the first day.
And that's
they-
flipped on?
once.
So, I mean, with all due respect, I would hope if you've got a pump installed there to flip on it, the water hasn't shown back up. So, to say we haven't seen water back in there and then to have a pump flip on because there is water, we're talking about 2 different things. Now we've got a pump to move it out. So there is water coming in there. Maybe not a lot. I mean, if it's only come on once,
I believe it's a situational event. I mean, the way we build the houses is that we lay down a bed of stone down there, so that acts as a collection point, and the amount of water that ran down that bulkhead saturated all the soils around it, and it takes a little while for that stuff to dissipate. And
here's my problem. We've got a dozen situational events. We've got co-location of a flooding farm pond and these catch basins. We've got a situation event on 3, a situation event on 5, a situational event down in settling basin 2. And what it really looks like is there's essentially no control of this site. Where we've got all of these issues adding up. And so I'm not inclined to lift substantial components of the enforcement orders until we know what's going on and each of these issues is mitigated. Then we've got something that we can work from and go forward, but the number of individual one-offs here is adding up.
It's just unique that we've had so many failures on the detention basins.
That said, I
But-
do want to lift the components of the enforcement order that are prohibiting the applicant from addressing the problems and stopping them from getting worse. So
Right, so you've
the
just, you've just
curbing down there
you've
is, I
addressed the
think, is an
curbing,
important
you've
one.
released 12.
Yep.
I was gonna ask you to let them grade and stabilize 9 and 10 as well. 'cause
But
I
9
think
is
once-
contributing to 3.
Talk to me about how much grading you have left to do with 9. Like, are we talking about push a dozer over it for a few minutes, or are we talking about days worth of grading?
Well, let's take them one at a time. I think on lot 10, we've got a loam stockpile here, and our the septic's in, the binder's in. We could loam that site and spray it, and get some stabilization going.
See, that's the kind of thing that I,
Move the stockpile,
I'd
you
like
mean,
to
or
see.
leave the stockpile on?
It's loam, we'd spread it.
Okay, so that's what it's there for,
Yeah.
yeah.
We'd spread it.
What about 9? The septic system's in the front and the driveway
Septic
has
system's
to
not
get-
in yet.
It's not.
We can put the septic in.
so you've got some work to do.
No, because you don't want that turned on because you haven't been able to do that yet.
Is any of
wait,
9 stabilized?
No.
No.
So if that's regraded, 9, I'm talking about this one here.
Well, I think, I don't.
If this one is regraded, there'll be less contribution to this, is that what you're saying, Sarah?
No, he's saying to go ahead and finish this and put the septic system in.
Septic's out front, out here, and I think if we can get that, I don't know that if we're diligent in maintaining the cleanliness of the road, that building the septic is gonna contribute to this. Because we're gonna be importing sand into a hole.
So that would enable them to stabilize 9 and 10, loam and seed it.
Yeah, the
And
sooner
get
you
rid of
got
some
it
of that
stabilized, then you can eliminate that. Out of
I'd
curiosity, you got a
support that.
water line going there? You must have town water?
No water.
You don't suppose you got a leak?
You'd know that by the gauge. I'm sure
That was all pressure tested.
Yeah, the water department would know.
you'd know it right away.
Yeah, it's not.
They would be out there in a heartbeat.
Your
They
bill.
would know.
Maybe they'd wait for the
Maybe
first
they
invoice to
wouldn't, you
come.
would know because of the bill.
Well, I think if it was a leak in the trench, you'd realize
You get it.
a sinkhole.
You get a depression.
What
But
about-
there's,
A little sand.
there's no water line in 9 or 10.
Is there?
Neither of those have, the curb stops are in, but there's no water lines to the
No,
houses.
but I was just thinking the main line, trunk line to a hydrant or something, is there a hydrant that's going bad?
Well, I think the road would fail if we had a water line on the road. Yeah, the road would fail.
Sarah, is there an approach to 9 that would allow them to stabilize it that you would find to be comfortable enough? Or would you prefer
Well,
to
yeah.
sit back on 9 until
I wouldn't want to
we
do
address basically?
the septic here if they want to stabilize on the backside, but I think 3 is really the paramount issue.
Do you have more
I would think
grading?
stabilizing lot 9 where it slopes into basin 3.
Mhm.
Yep.
Maybe not final stabilization, but some sort of stabilization, because that's kind of a rough slope in there right now.
Yep. I'd agree.
That said, if the applicant has some final grading to do on those portions of the site, I would rather see that grading done and then stabilize
But not if
rather.
it's higher.
Uh,
If the grading is at grade or lower than the pond, that would be fine, but I don't want to go a higher grade.
It would increase the flow.
I see your point. My interest there is that I'd rather tear it up once.
It's got a pile of loam that's higher now. It seems to me it would be better to spread it and seed it.
That loam is over there.
And I'd really like
Yeah,
some of
10's
that
kind of a-
unstable
a
soil
mess.
stabilized.
I'm okay
It
for
could stand
10.
getting,
Clean up 10.
So, okay, so 10, we're gonna,
We're not releasing, but we're just going to allow the work to be done.
10 or 9?
to go to final
10
loam
and
seed.
9?
Yep, 10.
What about 9? If it's gonna improve things, Sarah, and you get it stable,
Yeah, I'd rather.
Yeah,
and
as
you
long
have the
as it's
grass,
not a higher
have grass
grade.
and,
Lot 9, we're gonna build a retaining wall to retain the driveway side and keep the side closest to that pond lower. So I think if we, right, that retaining wall would retain the driveway and we wouldn't be like sloping down to the pond from the garage side of,
But it would
You
reduce
have
that
number
nasty
9.
silt,
Yeah, but you're not gonna
Kate,
put the wall
Sarah.
on in that, though? I don't know that any silt is going in from there. That's what we're trying to prevent.
Yeah, but if they loam it and seed it, wouldn't that reduce the
Yeah.
siltation though? I would encourage,
and also absorb
Both lots.
rainwater.
Yep.
If you got something there, it's growing, it's
Yeah.
gonna take up the rainwater.
but you're not comfortable with doing the septic there yet?
Not until you figure out what's going on with
That,
it.
I mean, I don't know how they feel, but I can find comfort with that balance.
so you mean the rear of that
Yep, so if
lot?
they want to stabilize 9 and 10,
Sarah, what would make you comfortable to let them put the septic in?
have to go back out on site and figure out what 3 is. What's going on with 3? And you've got to build a wall, and all of that may influence your, if there's any issues with 3. Hate to have you build a wall and then figure out that this has to be redesigned into 3.
So you're not talking about building the wall?
No, I wouldn't.
Yeah, just
I wouldn't
a temporary
because
stabilization.
until you fill out 3, you might have to use some of lot 9 if this ever went into a redesign.
So the basin themselves are all, they're large and they're very, very shallow.
I recognize, I've been out on site.
The design intent was to allow the water to go into the ground. Obviously, that's not the case. The solution to having the water go into the ground is to amend the bottom of the basin itself. So it's exceptionally unlikely that the size or shape of that basin is gonna change. It's gonna be what we're doing to the bottom of it, to make sure that we're getting the infiltration, which again, right now is not necessarily an issue as long as we're not discharging
I just,
solely.
you know, I just think that the commission's in a position where there's been so many unknowns that we don't wanna keep going with, it shouldn't happen. So I just think enough risk has been taken so far that we wanna try and find some assurances.
So maybe temporarily stabilize those
Sure.
now.
Yep.
And then
9 and
find
10
out what's
and then-
going
Sounds
on
like
with
10
3.
can go to final stabilization.
At 10.
Nine
Final
can
9
have
is
it
partial.
temporary.
And on 9, leave it optional at the developer's discretion to temporarily stabilize,
Sure.
because it might be better to go in and find out what's going on with 3 than to spend money
Agreed.
temporarily doing something on
Right.
9.
What does that mean, temporarily stabilizing?
Just basically hydroseeding, getting loam in and.
Or
bringing
tube
some-
netting, or,
Tube
They're
netting.
not gonna let you build the wall, so you're not gonna wanna,
yeah.
you're not gonna wanna grade and hydroseed.
So you're saying just from the front, the septic's out front, but from the side of the house back, is that what you're suggesting?
South and
Yeah, the rear.
west.
The rear.
We look at the
Maybe
plan, maybe
Maybe
just so.
it's north and kind of
My sense though is that if we're gonna do that and we're close to finished grade, wall accepted, I guess I'd rather see them get to finished grade before we stabilize there. It's just one less step that we've gotta deal with later.
I don't know,
I don't wanna,
should be
until
stable.
you know what's going on with 3, and that you wouldn't have to remodel something for lot 9.
Well, that's exactly a risk, though.
Or, yeah, I was gonna say, they can do it at risk.
Let them do it at the risk, because if you stabilize this 9, I think it's gonna go a long way.
Yeah, but
toward
then all of a sudden it's
figuring
done
three
and they're
out.
saying it's a hardship. So we've been on that side.
What's, I'm not following the concern, Sarah. What are your thoughts on, by putting this in, we're gonna end up doing what? Maybe needing to.
We're trying to have some teeth for you to finish also your discovery on some of these others. So I think we're trying to find a balance here of, there has to be some incentive for you to finish some of these other projects so that we can figure out what the correlation is on some of the water events here.
Well, I can assure you that not being able to start this is highly motivating.
And Sarah, you're not giving them a release on that 9, you're just allowing them to stabilize it, so it will,
If they can grade it and get grass growing,
yeah,
it's gonna help with any
I
erosion.
already agreed to that, Jim.
on 9.
Right, but not putting in the wall. So he can stabilize it and grade it, yes.
But not up front.
You can do that, but that's where your septic system's going, that's where your wall is going.
Septic system is in on 9.
No, it isn't.
There's no
What
wall
is
in
it?
this plan, is
No,
there?
no,
The wall's down here. The wall is
Yeah,
down.
right, the wall's not
To
built yet.
retain the driveway.
But is it on the
There
plan?
is no wall on that plan.
Yeah, so that's a
I
change.
thought this was
so that's a
9 and this
change.
is
There's
10.
no wall on that plan.
Vice versa.
Okay, so you're asking us to approve something that we haven't even seen for 9. Because what we're saying is that you've already made an amendment and we haven't even seen it yet, is what I'm hearing.
I'm saying it's not on this plan. It's on our subdivision plan. I'm wondering why it's not on this plan.
Septic plan.
So
So,
septic plan. So you need to amend this lot, Brian.
okay, so if you guys want to stabilize 9, that's fine, but I see no further work on 9.
Okay.
I think that's a pretty reasonable.
Get your plans in order.
Mm.
Okay. So I think we have enough to do.
Mm.
We are happy to come out anytime that you have questions. We ask that you stabilize the site and be diligent.
Out of curiosity, did anybody bother to wade out in there and taking a bar and seeing whether
That's
there's,
what they're gonna do.
do I was taking a bar and see whether there's frosting under there?
There's no frost.
You-
There's been water in there since January.
That's why I'm saying that
You guys have dug
It's
all
pretty
throughout.
shallow.
Is there frost still on your property?
no, but if there's been cover on it,
Water doesn't stay
Where,
above frozen
where
water.
were you on the stabilization of this?
Your corner, your,
Strictly the.
Lot
the-
7?
Cape Cod.
yes.
Just the berm. Leave the rest of it as is.
I mean, if you want, I mean, you can.
well, anything that's going
I
towards
wanna see as much of
pond.
this stabilized as possible.
So if they want to spray it or net it or something, but you're not gonna get equipment in there.
No, you're not gonna get equipment in there.
You're allowing them to do the berm and you're allowing them to stabilize the bank. That's the only part that's unstable. The
But not
other-
bringing in loam and seed doing
No,
probably
I-
two.
Yeah, I
Well,
think
you already-
we're,
you
I
already
think
had
we're
loom on the
premature
banks.
Yep.
for a loom and suit on.
The loom was already there.
On lot 7, not.
No, oh yeah, over here. He just asked.
I asked about lot 7, I'm sorry. I was asking about lot 7.
7, right, yeah. Yeah, absolutely, let's do the berm, let's get that component of the road taken
We'll
care
stop
of.
at the berm. And whatever we.
Berman, if you wanna
Whatever we can
do, if
stabilize
you wanna
along the
do
banks.
any stabilization, that's gonna help you, so when you start to draw down, you'll already have that part stabilized.
So just so you're aware, we did the bank was shot last fall, so I think we'll see some growth this spring.
Mhm.
And then we resprayed the top, the flat area. So we will, after we berm this, we'll clean this up, we'll stay off the lot and its surrounding work. And we'll stay off of 9 until we figure this out, but we'll
So
finish 10.
the chairman had a question on the water truck that's on the property. Is that taking water off or putting water on to spray grass or things like that? Or is that just for?
Dust control.
Yeah, the water truck's been out there for the year and a half, or a year.
Yes,
Yeah.
just reminding.
You're not putting water in the farm pond, but chance.
Enough water to, okay.
And I don't know if you guys want to make clear, or if it's just in my head, that right now, the farm pond wetlands have expanded.
Oh, yeah.
That if it doesn't change, that's a new wetland resource that you've
Yeah.
created, so.
Which I think DEP has been alerted to as well.
So you're just gonna monitor the elevation of the pond until you figure out how it's responding to
Either
the.
shoot it or get a stake out there.
We do take exception that that wetland resource has been altered. I mean, we have an issued ORAD that's specifically delineated.
Which we can talk about, yeah. So I think there's enough discussion that's happened this evening.
I just want
on
to make sure it was on the
enforcement
table,
order.
that
Yep.
it's not.
And,
So
and
we'll
I
also
mean, certainly,
discuss
it,
I think our minutes should
whether it's
reflect that the applicant disagrees with that,
Yeah.
and that's,
Yep.
that's probably the best place to leave that particular discussion.
Yeah. Okay, so we meet again on May 8th. Anytime you want us to come out, we're happy to come out and help.
And hopefully have a good solution.
We're
Thank
back
you.
on May 8th.
Correct at the end.
Thank you very much
Okay.
for working with us.
Let me give that, that's Amy's plan.
I wonder if they shouldn't get an old-fashioned dowser and walk that property.
That's probably, yeah, that's probably how they chose the location of
Can
that.
you vote to ratify the remaining enforcement orders? You're lifted 12, but I do need a ratification of the rest of them.
We only,
Oh, that's right,
did- we only did 12. 12 was the only one.
That you
was
took
lifted.
off,
Yeah.
so I need the other 7 ratified, because those enforcement orders were just signed, not in a
Okay.
meeting.
All right, anyone wanna make a motion?
Okay,
So it's
I make a
basically just
motion,
down the line.
yeah, I make a motion to ratify, the following, lots on, Durkey Farms. Ratify the enforcement order on 204-772 Road, 204-805 Lot 9, 204-801 Lot 14, 204-817 Lot 7, 204-803 Lot 10, 204-800 Lot 13, 204-804 Lot 30.
A second that?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I think there's groundwater moving around, and I think the pressure is coming from the K property.
I agree. That's why I alluded to the benefit of an actual groundwater survey.
But even if it
Okay,
is
so we've already
groundwater,
closed that.
then would we,
discussion.
It's still an open hearing.
would we conclude that it is a new wetland area then? That's not, because it's not reversible.
Honestly,
I guess I
have to
don't
look
know
at the
what,
regulations.
even if it's surface water or groundwater, it's enlarged, so I don't know
So
what
resource.
difference it will really make.
Mhm.
I mean, we have to just decide if it is enlarged, whether it be surface water or groundwater, whether or not we're gonna allow them to let it overflow into that wetland.
Can we go back? Are there any other things that we haven't?
How
Just
about
Chestnut.
Chestnut?
So
You have something, sir?
we've either been softened up or we've been hardened here for Chestnut. I'm not sure which way it's going to
Or
go
he's
for
totally
it.
horrified.
site at various stages through wall collapse and wells kind of spouting a little bit.
I'm sorry, well spouting, did I miss something there?
Yep,
What does that mean?
the well.
That chestnut?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that the one, you go down on the left? At the very
You
bottom
go
of
down
that hill
where
on the left?
where the hill collapsed and where the wall collapsed, if you go down further, there's two wells.
Hmm.
And
Here's two sets of pictures, you must look at them, they're the same thing. Those are from today.
on Dropbox, there's,
I tried to
Five.
access the Dropbox,
you have to sign
but my
in.
Dropbox is full.
No, you're going to my Dropbox. You just have to sign in. It's not your Dropbox.
Well, I tried to go in and
If you download
it
them,
wouldn't
it's
allow me
to yours, so yeah.
oh, so that's what I guess
You
I
don't have to
was trying to
download them,
do.
you're just
Yeah,
viewing
you
them.
just view them.
You're just viewing them, you're not downloading them.
All right, I'll try to do it again. I wasn't able to.
So tell us a little bit about the wells and the erosion control measures and the wall and stabilizing the big wall.
Okay. With regard to the wells, I believe I wasn't directly involved, but with regards to
you
lot
the homeowner?
12. Pardon
Are
me?
you the homeowner?
No, I'm one of the engineers for the owner. Jeff Hannaford.
Like your beard's throwing her off, Jeff.
Oh.
And when were you last out on site?
Today around noon.
Okay.
With regards to lot 12, I'm not quite sure when that well was drilled before I got involved, but it was obvious that it was a true artesian. And they had contacted a well company who came in, and evidently in a situation like that, you do cap it. It wasn't capped properly, so it was coming right out of the cap. It's been capped, and an overflow, for lack of a better word, through the side of the casing was installed. The pipe was directed away from the well into rip-wrapped area, to a detention area, small detention area, that straw wattles were put around. There's a high iron content in the water.
The
So-
whole road is stained.
Yeah,
Really
the
high.
groundwater does have very high iron content. That overflow drain from the lot 12's well was directed along the erosion control towards lot 13. And the grade there does slope downward towards 13. Recently, I think it was about a month or so ago, the well for lot 13 was drilled. They did dig a small detention area for the slurry from the well drilling process. And when I was called about it, it was, I don't have the exact date, I want to say at least a week, probably 2 weeks ago, I went out to the site.
It was between the 6th and the 9th. of
Yeah.
April.
I guess Amy had been out.
Amy had been out, I was out, so I was out the day that the well driller was departing.
Oh, he was gone.
Yep. So,
So what I observed was a water level in the area they'd created to collect the slurry from 13's well that was right up to the top of the wattles. And I was called out by Ron LeBlanc, the contractor for the owner. So we looked at it, and what I determined was the water that was causing the rising of the level of the slurry pit was actually coming from the overflow from 12. So what
Paul and I did was, we reconfigured the wattles to create a dam between the two. When I looked at the detention area for the Lot 12's well, the leaves were coated with the iron, but there was enough depth of water to see that the water was clear. So the iron was settling out there. So what we decided to do was to dam that detention area for 12's well in a manner that would allow the water to rise up just enough to make it through to the next straw wattle and silt fence, and to monitor that to see that the iron was staying in the detention area, but the water was allowed to sheet flow out in a clean manner. So far, that's been the situation. Then, because of damming that, when I was out there today, I observed that the slurry pit for Lot 13 had dried out.
Okay.
They've cleaned out most of that slurry, and they've installed riprap, some stone riprap in that area just to prevent any erosion in a rainstorm.
So down gradient of that, the siltation that had failed because of the water that had gone and all the kind of mud that kind of went down there, have those been refreshed since?
I don't believe so. I didn't hear of and I didn't see a
Okay.
breach. It
Well,
was
no, they're,
up to, but
so, right, so you have to maintain those.
Right.
So it was already to the point of past capacity. So those, I'm just trying to get, if he can access the
Yeah,
photos, but,
I don't have to. Here we go.
Yeah, it's this area right here. The Lot 13 well is probably about here. And this is the worst part where the slurry's
was up
coming up
to
and over
it.
the
Yep.
wattles.
Oh, I see what you're saying. All right, yeah, I can make sure they replace that.
okay, so those,
Yeah.
that should have already
This
been
one.
done. So that's really important that you know that, going forward, that should be done quickly.
Sure, I'll make sure.
Because with the rains that are coming, if anything goes past that, then you need to retrieve it and bring it back.
Right, that's one of the reasons I was interested in being there today, because we did have recent rain.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the stone wall and sections of the stone wall which have now left what would have been a controlled buffer zone, or a controlled erosion control. Now they've actually, a couple of the blocks have gone past the area of work. So those need to be brought back in a cautious manner, but to make sure that there's erosion control down gradient of that.
Are you talking about the picture where
What are
the
you gonna-
dirt went
what are you gonna
beyond
do
the
about the-
blocks?
what are you gonna
and
do
then
about-
beyond the, it disrupted the hay bales?
Yeah.
What are you gonna do about the block wall? Just secure that so it stays there.
Okay, I had to leave the site today. I had a site visit in Westford, but I met today with Ron LeBlanc and the excavating contractor, Fred. Fred was still in the process of removing the remaining blocks that hadn't fallen.
Okay.
So the game plan, I was told, there was a structural engineer that was due on site this afternoon. Ron LeBlanc has spoken to the building department, asked what their requirements are for this wall to be permitted. They're looking for something stamped by a structural engineer.
Time out, to be permitted.
No, re-permitted.
It
Well,
was never
No,
permitted.
that's what I'm trying to
It was not
elucidate.
permitted.
Yeah.
To be permitted or
Oh,
re-permitted?
It was never permitted. We were under the assumption that it was permitted
Yeah.
when it was proposed.
I wasn't involved in that originally, so it's my understanding the same, that it wasn't.
So going forward, we're gonna need a copy of that, but in the meantime, you have your erosion control, then you have the driveway, and then the wall. I would like to see another line of kind of defense to protect that wall, so something at the toe of the slope of the wall, and then on the other side of the road. So it looks like this, so if this is your wall area, right? This is your hill that has your wetlands, so you've got all your kind of like wattles over here, and this is your driveway.
Correct, okay.
So, and this is where blocks have left. What I would say is to put some other form, temporary form of erosion control here, so that if this hill does continue to slide, you still have the driveway, but then to really make sure that the erosion control on this side is really able to prepare.
State hay bales? I
I
don't
would,
mind,
I would go with silt fence, I think it's stronger.
well, silt fence and state hay bales to back it up.
Yeah, maybe that would
There's
be
a lot
more.
of stone and stuff going over
Yeah, I
there.
don't know if we can
I-
control
You
that.
kind of have, you know, the wall, the driveway, the stacked blocks,
Yeah, the stack
which
blocks
have
need
knocked
to
over the
move.
erosion control, and then beyond that is the dirt and gravel, which is getting through the big boulders. And then there's another line, and these are probably, the walls in the best shape, you can see stuff's really starting to back up behind them, and the silt fence
Okay.
has gotten crushed.
Then it really needs it on both sides.
Yeah.
So Jeff, you were out there today. When was the last time you were out there before this enforcement order?
I would say, like I
Next
said,
slide.
I think it was a week to 2 weeks. I don't know if I have it in my calendar. But you had mentioned that the well rig had left, or was leaving when you were out. It was gone when I was out, so it was shortly after that part. And I think at that point, they may have already started the dismantling of the wall when I was out there a week or two ago.
My sense is that there's not a lot of deference to the order of conditions. I mean, there are things noted in those photographs that have been noted previously with a commitment to address. Is that correct, Amy? Some,
It's very reactive. You know,
Yeah.
say somebody's addressing it, it kind of gets addressed. I would almost say at this point that the erosion controls, especially the entirely downhill side ones, you need someone who installs erosion controls to come and install those erosion controls. It's not something,
Professionally.
it's not something Ron should do.
Okay.
Is that maybe somehow address the water coming down over the banking to start with?
It's
Coming
very
down.
rocky stuff.
by
that
the
just
house.
Demolish.
No,
It
but
looks like.
Right.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what that stuff, because they had gravelled the road, which was great. So I don't know if that gravel then got pushed, or if there's the gravel from the
I
wall
mean,
that collapsed, I don't know
there's
where it all
6
came
inches of
from.
gravel in front of some of
You'll
those
be able
walls.
to
Rocky.
see.
Yeah.
Do we have any teeth to impose an environmental monitor or something like that to go out there and inspect periodically? Just the reactive nature of this site makes me very concerned.
And it's always,
And it,
chestnut's always been a problem.
and it has always been reactive.
I sure never got a call that the wall had collapsed.
See how I mean that we've got.
I would like to
It's going
explore
down
the
here,
applicant's
so this
expense
is
of
inferior in terms of protection.
Mm-hmm.
That's
was always a
obviously
question
not, and this is where the
when I
wall
want an
had
enforcement order
collapsed
on this.
into,
Oh,
the hay
that's right, we
bales.
haven't done it.
so I think in good faith, probably what the commission is telling you is that they'll give you a period of probably about 24 to 48 hours to have the site professionally installed with erosion control.
I think you're being a bit generous on my behalf, Sarah, but
Well,
you gotta round up somebody.
I see your point.
Well,
well, so all you are not the owner, you're the engineer for the applicant, you can take that message back, but we would go on record, today's Monday, and we'll do an inspection on Wednesday, with hopes that it is heard that we need the site cleaned up.
But
okay,
that doesn't address the long-running reactive, using Amy's word, which I like here, the long-running reactive nature of,
You can have the owner come in, you can have them come in.
I mean, the trouble is that the storm is going to be Tuesday night through Wednesday. And I would think that something has to be done before this storm starts.
But you were out there today, and you
Tomorrow.
said that something had been done. Or-
is being done.
Some stuff had been done down for lot 13 and 12. You had the wells for lot 12 and 13, that stuff
But
had been done.
not adjacent to the wall, that hasn't been done. That hasn't been stabilized.
Well, with it, no, I mean,
They're actively working
today
at it.
they were actively removing the walls, so
Does he-
they're working at the base of the hill.
So essentially, there's no wall to even stop the soil from coming down
Right.
from the foundation,
Right.
coming down across.
Right.
There wouldn't be. It's
Until
almost
they
like,
get a building permit, there won't be.
but the other thing is they probably have got to figure out how to stabilize the water from the top down somehow, if possible.
Right, it appears that the two worst areas as far as water is when you first come in the common drive, on the right-hand side, lot 7B, it appears that they ran their perimeter drain over to that point and stopped. So, I observed that today. Ron has found the end of it. So we discussed that, and so I said, you can't build a common drive if you're gonna be dumping that kind of water on it. So it's gotta be dug down.
Well, that has to be permitted.
I mean,
Right.
now you're saying.
That is a notice, I mean, that has to be
Oh, I
permitted.
know, I know. But I'm just saying, with regards to where we're seeing water and where we need to make our efforts, that's one.
So the
How much
primary,
more water is coming down that hill, Jim, once we turn on the septic system up top?
Well, yeah, I mean,
I
what was
mean-
encouraging to me was, being out there today, it was more dry than I expected along the common
I
drive
actually agree
side
with
of
you on
lot
that, yeah.
12. I expected
Say that
that,
again, along the common drive side of lot 12, okay.
yeah, as you're coming down the common drive,
Okay.
where the wall was,
Mhm.
that area, with a good portion of the wall out. I had not expected to go to the site, so this is what I wore today to go to work. And when Ron called,
We call that
I
a loafer
thought-
test.
Yeah.
Okay, wear your loafers, everything's good.
Yeah, when Ron called, I thought, I hope I can drive down there, because I don't want to get out of my truck. But honestly, the common drive was in good shape, it was dry, there was not a lot coming. There was water coming out of the hill, Ron later pointed out that perimeter drain when I first drove in. Once I got to 12, it looked better than I expected. When I got to the other side of 12, where that hill is still somewhat exposed between the house on 12 and where 13's lot line is, there's water bleeding out at the bottom of that hill.
Is that north?
Hmm?
What direction? Is that north, southeast?
That would be facing Harvard.
What direction though? North,
I
southeast?
don't
I think
know.
that's north, I'm not sure.
Okay.
It's a little
It's
skewed.
between
Harvard
12 and
is-
13 though?
Harvard South.
so I guess getting back to.
So, well, as far as Chase's point of, the water, and getting back to where we're putting the erosion control, in seeing that water, and again, I really didn't get involved until,
With due regard, I don't think you can put in too much erosion control.
oh, I
So
know,
think that's-
I didn't say we
that's-
wouldn't.
But that's the message that you need to convey tonight, that if there's rain and the site isn't properly contained again, then we have to be reactionary to that.
Correct.
So-
I mean, now it's my turn to be the bad guy. Sarah got to be the bad guy last time. I would rather, I'm seriously interested in exploring, requiring an environmental monitor of some sort to look at this site on a certain periodic basis, because we've had these reactive problems over and over and over again. And some of the issues that we've had in the past are still not addressed. So we can't keep doing this.
What hasn't been addressed?
I don't know, notes right in there.
Have you been on the
about
site?
what hasn't been addressed.
Well, but Sarah was saying that maybe we need to address that to the owner, because he's
And
gonna have
and
to
that's
pay for
fine,
it.
and to the extent that I'm yelling at Jeff because he's the person in front of me, I hope he knows.
But it's all
I
the
mean,
whole,
personally,
all,
but-
the whole erosion as you're driving out on the left side
Is
of the
defunct.
road.
It's,
It gets pointed out, some repairs are done, and then it gets run over, or gravel
47?
pushed
And
over,
it's
so
en- and
it's
it's
a moving,
encroached
it's a
upon.
moving
Seven
target.
up top?
yeah.
And he does, Ron will, I will drive out there and say, oh, look, you've got an issue here, with the wells or with whatever. He will do something about it, which is why this last time with the well at 13, I was like, call your engineer, because I can't keep telling you how to deal with this.
Right.
And you've got to understand, Jeff, that Amy's got a finite amount of time, and she's got a lot of things on her plate, and I'm inclined to try and lessen that load by imposing upon the applicant here
Yep.
additional burdens.
Okay, I hear what you're saying now.
So the additional burden will be a cease and desist if this storm is not contained and it is not fully new-packed with suitable erosion control within 48 hours.
Okay.
I'd say within 24 hours before the storm.
Well, yeah, I mean, that leaves them being
That's-
able to get
that's
somebody tomorrow.
But the fact is, if he doesn't do it tomorrow and it goes past,
Right, I could
then
say,
he's bringing it back.
right,
So he has to, and that's usually done by hand, not by equipment,
right.
so.
Now, I don't believe there's been any significant breach of silt
Oh,
past
yeah.
the erosion control.
Other guys, yeah, I mean, even look at what your well did, the wells did.
I didn't think it got past the final line of
I
erosion
don't
control.
disagree that
I think.
maybe we've managed to avoid a
I won't disagree there.
complete disaster.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
You've had
but
failures, but you haven't had catastrophic, but I think that you're at that point where now the sections of the wall have tumbled on top of erosion control and gone past erosion control. It's like Humpty Dumpty out there. So, okay, I think it's been heard.
And at some point, we also need to determine if the wetland mitigation site was ever built, because I still don't think it is.
I
You-
think
you're
at
gonna-
this point,
you're gonna
we
look
need
into
to
that.
see the
I will,
applicant.
not
like a
having
different
been
order
involved
conditions,
at
but-
all,
Yeah.
That's fine.
I don't know where it is. If you have plans showing it, I'll be happy to take a look at it.
Yeah, it's supposed to be the cul-de-sac, basically between the Lot 12 house and the cul-de-sac. It's supposed to be in there. Yeah, I don't think there's anything in there. But it would also have been several years old, so it just
It was
doesn't,
for-
it doesn't look like it was ever built.
What was it replicating?
I'll send it to you.
I thought it was replication
The
for
bridge crossing for what goes up at the end of the cul-de-sac and up the hill, it was that. It was a separate
that
order
box
conditions.
culvert.
Yes.
And the replication was up by lot 12?
It was still on the cul-de-sac, but just to this side of it.
Oh, that surprises me.
So maybe if you wanna come back and do some historical kind of research,
Yeah,
you'd find that.
the plans that I have don't
Yep.
identify it, so maybe it's on something.
Alrighty, hopefully we won't see you
Um,
soon.
We do have, there was some question about the stability of the retaining walls at the culvert. Was that from you or the town engineer?
Probably the town engineer, but that's something that we mentioned a long time ago.
I know some stuff had been done, but I don't think it's been finished. Or I haven't heard anything, put it that way.
Yeah, the structural engineer is at that as well.
Okay.
Well, the town recently hired has its own engineer,
Oh, really? It's not the Greener Company? No.
Yeah, I would-
Okay.
In the DPW.
All right, if you have any
Yeah.
questions, just give us a call.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
I move to close the meeting hearing at 10:20.
I'll second it.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Because Main Street